1, 2. Now you can hear me. Hey, now you can hear me. 1, 2, chuffy 1, 2. Hopefully that will achieve the objective of drawing the attention. Let me check my settings. 2, chuffy 1, 2. Now you can hear me. Hey, now you can hear me. Yeah, I could be nicely heard. I'm in sync. If for any reason the stream goes out of sync, it's just a little error in the streaming package, in the streaming software, OBS. It's just a little glitch that happens sometimes. I can fix it just by turning my face off and on. So if it ever goes out of sync, you let me know and I'll fix it. It's just a little thing. If I go make loads of microphone noise, it's because I've just got loads of wires trailing around and something's knocking into something. I can fix it. So you let me know in chat and I'll fix those things. Talking of chat, I haven't... See, I'm not really... I've done this every day for how many days now, but I'm not 100% prepared again. I haven't popped out my chat. What we're doing today is the Tartaria. We're going back to our favourite Tartaria channel. There's no place like home. Going back to some homeschooling to look at their most popular upload. Question the narrative, the 1890 Enigma and the Lost Generation. We're going to have a look at that. A little watch, a little critique, a little chat. That's what we're doing. And before we start, I'm just going to get the chat window on the screen so that I can see it on the screen. Let me just do that. You leave it out. Get off me. Get off you. There we go. I think I've done it. I think that was it. It's hard to tell. I'll say something. Why don't I say something in chat like this? Hello. I'll just put hello. There you go. Yeah, it's working. Okay. And we've got the web browser. We've got my big face. Where my big face is, there also needs to be a web browser. Isn't there? There also needs to be a web browser. And we're going to be looking for that cheeky chat window as well, aren't we? So where the chuff is that, you chuffer. Haven't I just done that? There we go. Okay, there we go. Hello, Nigel. Hello. See, look, it's good that I have it on the screen because now I can see the chuffer. It means I don't have to keep looking. I've got so many windows on me. I don't have a monitor. I've got a telly. Don't have a monitor. I've got a telly. I'm Ganji Kid. I'm Grave Kipper. Where's my name, Grave Kipper now? What? It says it up there. So... I don't make the rules, do I? I don't make the rules. It says it up there. So what are you going to do about that? I don't know. It just says it up there. Right, so should go web browser. Should I turn on my name over here as well? I'm Grave Kipper. Got that. It says it down there. Oh, I'll do the introduction, won't I? Big face. I've sort of introduced you to what we're doing today, but I'll do the official... Try and get this in before we hit 4 minutes. Hi, you're with Scott. I'm Ganji Kid. I'm Grave Kipper. It's midnight. It's always midnight. It's actually 14:35 GMT. This is your right ear. This is your left ear. We're rolling, and I've only done 4 minutes of chuff, and we're going to get straight into it.
Is HelloFresh worth the price?
Ah! Is HelloFresh worth the price? I wouldn't know because I'm never going to buy it because you've advertised it in this format, and it's got to the point where it's annoyed me. So now when I see it, I'm just annoyed by it. I don't think, oh, I'd like to buy that. I think, oh, get off my... You're the one that keeps interrupting my day. Leave me alone. I'll just get my own vegetables out of the allotment, thank you.
I'm Shelley, and you're watching There's No Place Like Home.
Shelley. The other lady's called Michelle, and this lady's called Michelle. Shelley. All right.
I am going to apologize in advance for the audio because all of a sudden my computer is not recognizing my mic, and I have no idea why. But I wanted to talk to you
Shelley.
today in
All right.
this Question the Narrative video about the Lost Generation. This was actually brought to my attention by someone in the comments. So Ruth, thank you very much. I had never heard of this before. And so many of the things that I present to you were actually shared with me by other people. So I want to thank all of you who have left me information.
I wonder I wonder, this is just a rumination now, just a rumination, because we're starting on the Lost Generation Wikipedia page there. I, of course, have opened up the Lost Generation Wikipedia page to have a little look at what it is that they're going to be keying off already. And it's a concept that was suggested by Gertrude Stein. Now, Gertrude Stein is a reputable person. Novelist, poet, playwright, art collector. I think there's a museum named after her, isn't there? Am I just tripping about that? Have I just made that up in my brain? The Stein Salon, literary style. She's a reputable person. She's not a, you know, a conspiracy nut. So she coined this term in like the 20s. Its generation is considered to be made up of individuals born between 1883 and 1900. In the wake of the Industrial Revolution, Western members of the Lost Generation grew up in societies that were more literate, consumerist and media saturated than ever before, but which also tended to maintain strictly conservative social values. The young men of the cohort were mobilised on the mass scale for the First World War. Young women also contributed to it and were affected by the war. In its aftermath, they gained greater political freedoms. They later experienced the economic effects of the Great Depression. So it had sort of ups and downs. It's like you know how we say like Generation X, millennials, you know, these sort of phrases. It's the sort of pre-millennials of its time, isn't it? 1883 to 1900. It's like it's that sort of terminology. You can see on the graph here they've drawn a graphic. I don't know. The Lost Generation, they're the first ones to have coined a name on this graph. Then after that, you've got the Greatest Generation. The Greatest Generation. After that, you've got a Silent Generation. Everyone's got to have a name now. Everyone's got to have a name. Now that we started calling them generations, we've all got to have a name. It's become a thing. After that, you've got the Baby Boomers. We use that word boomer now, don't we? People on the internet use the word boomer. You might notice sorry, just going to point this out. My face is see-through. Do you not like it? Is it a bit horrible? Is it a bit horrible? Should we fix that? Should we just bin that off? Let's just bin that off. There we go. No, that didn't work. Made it worse. What am I doing? There we go. Bin it off. I just look normal now. So, right. Baby boomers, they're the people that were born after the war. Because after there was the Second World War, lots of people got killed. And then lots of people celebrated the end of the war. People came home from the war and lots of people ended up making babies. And there was a lot more babies all of a sudden than there had been previously because of the wars and stuff. And all of a sudden there was like a lot more babies in one big generation. They're the baby boomers. They were born in this 40 to 64. Look, they're the baby boomers. But because when they grew up, now anybody that was a baby boomer will be about 60 or 70. It's become an internet terminology for people that are old. Oh, you're boomer, you're old. But it's because the younger generations, the millennials, Generation Z and the Generation Alphas, they don't understand the world properly, so they use the wrong phrase. All right, relaxing music. That's a bit of a loud one. Thank you. That's better, isn't it? Nice and relaxing for the old music. Where's my generations? Yeah. So the older generations, the later generations, sorry, they don't understand properly what a boomer is, so they just use the word wrong. But here's me, Generation X. I'm a Generation X. There's the millennials. Look, I think 1980 is a bit early to be born for a millennial. I think actually millennials are they labelled this wrong. Look, millennials are not 81 to 96. That's Generation Y. The millennials are these 1997 to 2012s. Anyway, it's irrelevant, isn't it? It's all just ideas. It's all just a way of it's a way of giving a terminology to a sort of group of people that lived at a certain time while you talk about them. Of course, some people in the Lost Generation will be born very early in it, and some people will already be grown up when it starts. And they'll all be different people, all different ages. It's not like a hard and fast rule. Just like an idea drawn up by literary people to refer to groups of people in their literature. Ernest Hemingway used it in the epigraph for his 1926 novel, You're All a Lost Generation. You can see why, though, why they're saying that. Because this generation suffered an incredible world war. The Great Depression was involved later on. The flu pandemic. There's like all these problems. And also, because of the Industrial Revolution, they're thrown into a new world without the tools and skills and knowledge to deal with it. So they've given them this name, the Lost Generation. That's the facts of the matter. I will be clicking on this window by mistake many a time today, so just bear with me while I try and find, because I've got loads of windows open. This is the one we want now. Question the narrative. The 1890 Enigma and the Lost Generation. Question the narrative. Let's go.
Overwhelming the amount of information that I get, but it's always appreciated. So the Lost Generation actually fits in perfectly with what I've been talking about.
Oh, I did want to say, she said someone had sent this in to her. So people have been leaving comments and suggesting things to her. I wondered whether some people might be doing that to confuse her, so that she makes a video about something they've suggested as a joke, as a troll, you know, trolling her. Oh, why don't you look into this? Thinking it's just the sort of thing that these idiots would get looking into and get confused by. I wonder if they did that to her. I don't know.
In a lot of these videos about the 1890 anomaly is what I call it. It seems that so many things happened around the year 1890, maybe 1880s up to early 1900s. It just seems that there was some sort of, dare I say it, reset. Well,
it wasn't a reset, was it? It wasn't like, resets. You know, if you've got your computer and you turn it off and on again, resets. It wasn't that, was it? It was the Industrial Revolution and the war. I mean, if you have a great big war, I just need to check the dates about the First World War. The Industrial Revolution, 1820 to 1840, precedes this. So you're just in the wake of the Industrial Revolution, yeah? So that's changed the world in a huge way. And then the First World War, 1914 to 1918. Okay, so it's a little bit after the First World War. So we're not going to count the First World War as part of their idea of a reset. So we're saying it's post-industrial revolution. The world changed in a huge and almost impossible to explain kind of way. Like, it's not impossible to explain, but impossible to conceptualize to our... I suppose not impossible. Like, we've had mobile phones and the internet. You know, if you look back into the 80s, the way the world was in the 80s and the 70s is so different from the way it was now. It was a bit like that, wasn't it? It was a bit like that. Let's continue. I want to keep her rolling, because usually I pause so often we don't get through what they're saying.
Things just seem to start over anew. And it just so happens that the generation of people living between 1883 and 1900 are called the Lost Generation. And, I've talked about that. I've called the people the inheritors, and trying to figure out why people seem so out of place and why there are so many children that don't have families in this time period.
I can answer that. The incidents of, if you're talking about the Industrial Revolution, right? During the Industrial Revolution, oh God, it's so big, isn't it? It's so big. It's so big. There's so much. But we basically started using machines to do work for us. So we developed factories and mills and all this sort of stuff. And what would happen is people would be killed in industrial accidents. Suddenly, there was a rise in industrial... It was the first rise in industrial accidents, wasn't it? Because before that, there wasn't so many industrial... There wasn't an industry in the same way, was it? You can look into the Industrial Revolution in your own time, I suppose, but we're talking about a reason for there being lots more orphans post-Industrial Revolution would be an increase in adult mortality based on industrial accidents in a way. Also, you had, if you remember, it was mentioned, these, diseases, the Spanish flu. I'm trying to just pick out the information off this page. For some reason, my brain's not working very well today. My brain's all right for talking to you, but for reading this information, I'm feeling a bit dyslexic. It just seems to be like a lot of words that I can't... I saw the information earlier, and now I can't pick it out. That's just I've got this light shining in my eyes. It's just the way there it is, Spanish flu pandemic, 1918. Pandemic in 1918. So that would, obviously children would die as well, but you see what I'm saying? There's a lot more reasons for adults to be leaving their children orphans with more adult mortality, I guess. I don't know the exact facts, but there's a suggestion that would quite easily, see, I told you I'd be accidentally pressing that button all the time, that would easily explain what she was hammering at.
Even though it tells us something different than what I'm thinking of for the lost generation, for the meaning of it, we always know that there's usually more to the story. But so what it tells us the lost generation is, it was the social generational cohort that was in early adulthood during World War I. Lost in this context refers to the disoriented, wandering, directionless spirit of many of the war survivors in the early post-war period. So that's why it's saying that the people born between 1883 and 1900 are called the lost generation, because of the World War I that was going on. But if you actually look at the definition of lost, there are, several very...
So we can totally use the war, actually. I discounted the war, but we can totally use the war and the Spanish flu, all those reasons. That's the generation. It's not just they're alive at 1890, it's that they're born in that time and they live on through that time. So it's that generation going on through the 1920s, the lost generation. Okay, I'm happy with that. And there are more meanings of the word lost, yes. But because we've had them qualified for us by Gertrude Stein and Ernest Hemingway, it wasn't just one word that was used here, was it? They give you the context. Look, in this context, it refers to disoriented, wandering, directionless. So it's this context, that's what it is. So now to try and take it out of context and show you some other contexts, sorry, I keep pressing the wrong window, to show you some other context seems a little bit disingenuous, because it's just been qualified for you what context it's supposed to be used in.
Similar meanings, but some of them are not made use of, won, or claimed, no longer possessed, no longer known. That one to me seemed very interesting. Ruined or destroyed physically or morally, taken away or beyond reach or attainment.
So you can pick taken away and unknown out of this list, but you're going to ignore ruined or destroyed physically. Why is it okay to now twist the different meanings out of a word and apply them when they've been categorically outlined for you in a different context? And why not attempt to shoehorn in these other meanings of the word lost? Why are you choosing the one that fits your narrative? Why are you choosing the one that fits your idea, that fits, have you ever heard of it's something bias? I told you my brain's not working well today. When you want to find, you see what you want to see. Bias, seeing what you want to see. It's got a name. Confirmation bias, that's what it is. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. I hope it's not going because I tapped on the keyboard on the table and wobbled everything. See, it's got a name. Confirmation bias, that's what it is. You're all right. So I'm not going to go big into this because I think it's an obvious thing that most people know. But confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favour and recall any information that confirms or supports one's prior beliefs or values. Now, she might say, hello, there's no place like home. I need your actual channel. Shelley might say that she's not biased, that she's not trying to prove this narrative online, that she's simply researching things and by being unbiased is coming up with this information. But the facts of the matter are different. She's got a lot of these videos about this sort of stuff, a lot of them. She's mixed it in with the homeschooling, so it's a homeschooling and conspiracy channel combined, which seems to be one of the most ethically bereft concepts I've come across on YouTube thus far. Teaching young children and mad conspiracy. That's the combination here. But she's obviously got a bias, because if she could prove these conspiracy theories were in some way valid, then it would add validity to her entire body of work. She hasn't, when she's done Question the Narrative, She's only ever done it from this side of the conspiracy theory might be right. She's never done a question the narrative video, as far as I can see by reading through the titles, that says, actually, maybe the conspiracy theories are wrong and the truth is what they're telling us. Let's question the narrative in that way and let's see if that holds water. She's never done that. She's only ever looked at it through this one prism. So she has got a bias because she's not looking at the world through different ideas and concepts and a variety of concepts. She's consistently looking through the eye of Tartaria. So it's not fair for her to claim she's not biased. She is biased, and therefore a confirmation bias favouring ideas or information that might confirm or support your beliefs, cherry picking the things that you want to have and ignoring the other stuff. A confirmation bias is quite a common thing in this situation. Oh, look, there's Mega Man music. You can chuff off. I'm not enjoying this music today. It's starting to get in the back of my head and annoy me. I just want background music, not like almost foreground, thank you. Let's have something chilled. The fact that I can't hear it's good enough for me. Oh, it's muted at the top. Okay. So we'll go back to Michelle, the homeschooler, who is now I've proved it, she's using confirmation bias. She says the word lost in this context has been given, it literally says, lost in this context refers to disoriented, wandering, directionless spirit of many of the war's survivors. And you can understand that if you've been through a First World War, you're in a new world and things don't make as much sense as they used to. The world, things, when I was a lad, everything used to be fields. Things don't make sense like it used to. What's with all these mobile phones and all this, you know, if you're in the new generation, the older generation, you've seen many of your peers die and you're left in the empty shells of what was going to be a highly populated area until, you know, there was a world war and they had to end up getting killed. You might feel a bit disoriented, wandering and directionless. So that's why it applies. The term was termed by Gertrude Stein, Ernest Hemingway. They're literary people. They write books and plays. So they qualified their language with context. So it's definitely factually that. But Michelle has managed to ignore that in her research. She's managed to ignore what she's been told in her research, what she's found out. And now she's just reaching. She's picking out random, you've got various meanings of the word lost. Well, I don't want ruined and destroyed physically. That one fits with what they're saying. Let's ignore that. But taken away or beyond reach, ooh, that one we'll have that. That's not what you're supposed to do. You can't invent your own context. They've given you a context.
And yeah, taken away is another one that makes me scratch my head. Insensible, hardened, unable to find the way, no longer visible, lacking assurance or self-confidence, and
that one fits.
There's several others. But anyway, so before I get into what I'm looking at as the lost generation, let's talk about just for a little bit, because I have mentioned this several times before, why I think that this time.
Oh my God, she's worse than me. Like, I've got several windows open because that's what we're going to use today for our broadcast. But she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. She's got to the point where you can't have any more windows at the top and you've got an arrow. A lot of them are JPEGs. Some of them are Wikipedias. There's a lot of Wikipedias. There's a History Channel one there. You can't be doing your research on the History Channel. They're notorious for talking shit. Yeah, what an interesting collection of ideas forming at the top of the page there.
Period is so extremely interesting. So I noticed in my own town where I live, this is not my town, this is just the screen that I have up right now. But in my other videos where I talked specifically about the town where I live, I also noticed in my own town that it seems that a lot of things first really started happening around here around the 1890s or maybe.
What a dumbass. I mean, I'm not going to try and be rude personally. The word came out. The word came out. If you live in America, you might be surprised to learn that the 1890s... if you live in America, you might be surprised to learn... Obviously, you've got all this history of the United States, yeah? But I didn't ask that. Did I ask for the history of America? So why don't we take us back to the actual history of America? First of all, you've got the Native Americans. They settled in about 10,000 years ago. You've got a pre-Columbian era. You've got Paleo-Indians, 10,000 years BC. So I didn't mean 10,000 years ago, I meant 10,000, 12,000. 10,000 years BCE, you've got people in North America, look. 10,000 BCE. But we kind of ignore that. We kind of ignore them because whatever they did, we went over as Europeans and basically murdered a lot of them. I think that was the thing, wasn't it? We murdered them. Was it murder? Colonisation. Anyway, look. So we went out there, Europeans. I say we because I'm living in Britain, but I didn't do this. We went out there. The first ones were Norse people in the 1020 and 1075. Norse Scandinavian exploration. But after that, in 1606, so 600 years later, eventually we'll get to the bit that we accept is the truth, won't it? Eventually we'll get to the bit that the Americans say is what happened. But in the rest of the world, we don't see it exactly as the Americans say it. I'm sorry if I'm being rude to you and you're American and you obviously realise this. But it's just funny the way sometimes it's like Columbus discovered America. No, he didn't. It was there before him. You know, it's funny the way that like Columbus gets this accolade and like from then on it was America, but before that it didn't exist. Well, no, it did. All this stuff happened. All this loads of this stuff. But we'll just go from Columbus because that's what we're talking about really, isn't it? You know, Columbus in the 1500s, the Dutch in the 1600s, because Columbus was Spanish, wasn't it? Swedish, French, Spanish. Then finally the British, 1600s and onwards. There's like a vying, a contending for land and power and ownership. Throughout the 1600s, the colonies are formed. Obviously, they can't do much because it's pre-industrial revolution. There's no train tracks and there's no like motor vehicles or, do you know what I mean? There's boats and there's wind power and there's fighting and muskets, smallpox. It's all that sort of stuff. So they didn't get that far. And what eventually drove the explosion at this point, they were fetching furs. They were killing animals and skinning them for the furs because they all wanted nice hats in Europe. They wanted nice hats, and that's what initially drove and pushed the colonisation. In the 1700s, the colonies split, look, and all sorts. There was all problems with these colonies. It didn't go exactly that well for them until we got really going with slavery. Until we got really going with slavery in the 1600s and started bringing African slaves to America to do all the work for us. Why don't I say us instead of the slaves? Well, I mean, why do I say us? Why am I? That's a bit weird, isn't it? Because I could be a slave. I'm 10% Indian. Until they brought the slaves to do all the work for them. It's a bit weird the way I identify with the white colonials, isn't it? British, that's why. But until they did that, there wasn't that explosion. They didn't have the labour force, did they? But then they did. So then there was a bit of an explosion in industry, you might say, in industry. But this was pre-industrial revolution again. It was all on the back of slave labour, cotton, farming, slave labour. And then when the Industrial Revolution kicked off, you've had war, look, French-Indian War, all sorts. I'm not, 100% au fait with everything that happened in the early formation of America because I can't learn everything. But look, revolution, independence, forming of the actual United States of America, the war against Britain, the independence, that's going to be a big part of it. And finally, the Industrial Revolution, that's going to be a part of it. So in 1890, because we're only just getting there now, look, 1820, the Second Great Awakening, the era of good feelings. So America's starting to take off now. America's starting to take off. You could actually say it was the 1820s, but she's cherry picking her information. But the what we're seeing here is it's the 1820s to the 1840s is the big explosion of what you might consider more modern America. Still based on slavery. Still based on slavery. You get your Civil War in 1861. Then a post-Civil War, we'd probably say, you know, modern America, wouldn't we? Post-Civil War. The frontier and the railroad. You've got your Wild West and all that going on now. 1890s. So it wasn't like she said. The Gilded Cage was a term Mark Twain used to describe the period of the late 19th century, the dramatic expansion of American wealth and prosperity. The Gilded Cage. From 1880 to 1914, the peak years of immigration, more than 22 million people. Oh, there it is then. There it is. So by 1890, American industrial production per capita income exceeded those of all the other world nations. She's actually kind of right, actually. It pushed and it blossomed up to this point, didn't it? I was going to say a little bit after it because of the Wild West, but no, fair enough. 1890, southern states still doing the racism. Look, I'd have thought after the racism, but she's saying the racism era was good. There was a big explosion. Yeah, we've got the Industrial Revolution, we've got the railroad, we've got all this other stuff. We've got government, civil service. We've got a vast 22 million immigrants that can go in there on the back of slave labour and be successful. So yeah, it did seem like that was happening, but not for the reasons she thinks. Seems weird, doesn't it, that an American wouldn't know this stuff about their own history, about whys and hows and wherefores, when they're homeschooling their kids.
1880s. A lot of the buildings were first built around that time, or maybe around 1900, even though the town was founded in the 1700s. I was reading the records of a historian who said that they didn't really keep records before the 1880s or the 1890s. And even then I thought to myself, why does it just seem like things...
Did they keep records in America before the 1800s and the 1890s? Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Look, colonies, settlements, all of this is recorded history. All of this is recorded history. So yes, they did. I don't know where you got that idea into your head that they didn't. Maybe in your town particularly, maybe your particular town was just a village, so maybe they didn't. But records in general have been kept about populated areas since Roman times, since before Roman times, since Egyptian times, since, oh God.
Things are first happening now when they were supposedly happening long before. And it's not just my town. You can look up so many instances of events from all over the world.
But like we just said, your town probably didn't exist in the way it does now until that population boom, until that industrial revolution, until the railroads. Your town probably was a name on a map with a few dust balls and a farm, but you're confused about the nature of the world before and after that industrial revolution. That's all it is.
And a lot of them seem to be centered around that 1890 year. Not specifically 1890 always, but somewhere in that vicinity. So, and a lot of the strange things that I've talked about here seem to be centered on here. So I mentioned this one before. This is underground Eureka Springs. According to local history, 2 major streets in downtown Eureka Springs underwent considerable re-engineering in the year 1890. Main Street was the first official street in town built.
This is a worry because we've seen previous images of streets being re-engineered in this time, and she's been using it as examples of people digging the buildings out of mud, that they were flooded with mud. But actually what's happened is when you dig up the street, it causes there to be a little pile of mud against the buildings while you re-engineer the street, and then you put it back. It wasn't a mud flood, it was street engineering. But it's weird that she's discovered that and she still hasn't managed to factor that into her theory of 1890s America, that she's still going to ignore that piece of information that is factual, logical, sensible, intelligible information. And that's a big worry. I worry about Michelle. I worry for her.
In a low-level gulch alongside a small spring-fed creek. It suffered from frequent runoff problems and quickly earned the nickname Mud Street. And so I had mentioned this in a mudflood video, hence the need for improvements. So what basically happened was that there's an underground town. They built one town on top of the other, and you will notice that, 1890 seems to be the year that they decided to do this.
Hang on. An underground town? Second Street town requiring attention with Spring Street is also becoming the main thoroughfare today. It serves as a primary route for much. No, it doesn't say there's an underground town. It's referring to the history of the underground Eureka in the title, but what it means is it raised the overall level of the two streets and required that a number of businesses along Spring Street and Main Street create new entries on the second floor, make basements out of the one street level facades. The original entrance. Oh, it does mean that they raised a level. The first official street in town built in a low-level gulch. So the first street was actually sub-street level, if that makes sense. It was built in a low-level gulch alongside a spring-fed creek. It suffered from frequent runoff problems and quickly earned the nickname Mud Street, hence the need for improvements. The second street in the town requiring attention was Spring Street, as it was also becoming a main thoroughfare for carriage traffic. It still serves as the primary route for Eureka's historic loop. The significant row of improvements raised the overall level of the two streets and required... We've seen that in pictures before, haven't we? They raised the street level. Instead of it being lower than if you've got ground level and your street is like a divot into the ground, like that, and it goes down, more people use it. It's a mud street. We haven't got tarmac and all that. We're out in the new world. So it divots. It's like a ditch. And that's a problem, isn't it? That's a problem. So they raise the street level up, like they raise the ground level up so that it's not waterlogged, so the water drains off it and stuff like that. Now the buildings either side appear to be slightly lower than street level at points. And obviously for this, it was quite extreme. It had gone almost, lower than street. So they had to reassess the businesses. Now we're not talking about giant... We're not talking underground Eureka. I've got to have a look at it. I bet the buildings we're talking about are like little wooden buildings, not massive. Let's see. Eureka Springs underground images. You need actually like a good image to see. What's going on here, don't you? Because you can see they're in tunnels, but you can't really see the context. I mean, it's interesting, this story, but it doesn't mean that there was a mudslide. What's so interesting about it is that because it's like an anomaly, right? Because it's such a strange thing. Not all things like this happen all over the world. So they've recorded it, haven't they? Look, here's a plaque and a record and the original story that she's read out herself. But she's saying, you can't believe the record. We're going to have to make up some new fantastical reason why this happened. It wasn't a simple case of geology. I'd like to go and see it and see what the whole... It looks like it's built into hills. Look, it's hard to see the exact facts here, isn't it? It's hard to... Oh, there's a good one. Yeah, it's... Oh, okay. Open image in a new tab. There we are. There you go. You can have a look at that. Even with the iShock editorial use only watermark. I see. Look, we're going up and down in these hills. Look, one of these went too far down. They had to fill it in and raise it up. One side of that building is under street level. The other side's above street. It's that sort of area. Okay. no problem. Doesn't prove mud floods. It just means one place had a waterlogged street with mud, and they'd already built buildings, and it all got a bit messed up, so they decided to do a bit of civil engineering and fix that up. That's what that means. I've got loads of windows now. I've got more windows than her. Look now. What's going on with me? But really interesting story. Nice that we got to learn about that.
Another interesting thing around that time was the Johnstown flood, and I could be here all day going over things that happen around this time, but if you're interested, just go through
You absolutely could.
Things that happen.
The thing is, though, you absolutely could be here all day doing things that what happened around 1890, because it's a whole year, 1890. Even if you just do the 1 year, 1890, and today's just a day. It's 24 hours. If you make a list of all the things that happened in a year, you're going to have trouble. And you're going to get floods all over the world. You're going to get adverse weather events. You've got, you know, people building things in areas they didn't even know were floodplains, or wanted to build in floodplains because it was the best method of transporting. You know, I don't know. I don't see that just because one place had a flood, we are to assume the entire world was engulfed in mud and that everyone was reset. I don't think it's weird to make that jump for me. But
Happened throughout history, and pay attention to the time, because you will find that it's not hard to find things that are happening at this time, and it always seems to be life-changing events. So,
got news for you. Life-changing events happen all over the time, all over history. So there you go. There'll be floods all around the world every year, all the time. And we had already confirmed that this was an important and vibrant time in human history where the Industrial Revolution changed people's lives.
Anyway, here's the Johnstown flood. The Great Flood of 1889 occurred on Friday, May 31st, 1889, after the catastrophic failure of the South Fork Dam, located on the South Fork of the Little Conemaugh, I don't know how to say that, river, upstream of the town of Johnstown, Pennsylvania. The dam ruptured after several days of extremely heavy rainfall, releasing 14.55 million cubic meters of water. And so a lot of times the things that you see happening around the year 1890 involves some sort of destruction.
Well, the dam broke.
So back over here, you know, they talked about it was from the runoff of a creek, and
that wasn't talking about destruction. That was talking about how things weren't good enough in the town, so they improved them. That's construction.
It had the name Mud Street, and unfortunately, I don't think that you can zoom in on that picture. But destruction. Destruction seems to be a common theme around this time.
No, it doesn't. We said it was the Industrial Revolution.
Here we have the Seattle Underground, which you can actually visit now. And I mentioned this one in a video or two. I'll leave links to all of these posts, articles in the description box. But the main point of this, because I really do just want to get back to the lost generation, is, yeah, a lot of really strange things happen around this time. So in the mid-19th century, these structures were on the ground level and all the buildings were made of wood. And that actually doesn't make sense, because they're showing you the underground here, and that's not wood, that's brick. They're telling you that it's made of wood because it has to go with the whole everything burned down, because everything was made of wood. But if you look at this, that surely doesn't look like wood to me.
No, but that wasn't necessarily built in 1800s, was it? Because if you're going to go down there and take photographs, and it was all just made of wood and they just dug it out, it might fall on your head. So there may have been other buildings as well, future buildings from that time onwards, that maybe wanted, foundations. You can see there's a light, an exit light in the background there. So somebody's come in here and built structures to make it safe, so you can go on a little tour through their little tunnel with the exit light at the end. There wouldn't have been electricity down there either, but there is now.
That's brick. Anyway, however, most of them, so they're talking about the buildings, most of them were destroyed in the Great Seattle Fire on June 6th, 1889. That day, sometime after 2:30 in the afternoon, a cabinet maker, an employee in Victor Claremont's woodworking shop, accidentally forgot the glue that he was heating over a gasoline fire.
Do you know what's interesting is that's a really specific description of the fire. The man forgot the gasoline was really specific. I wonder how they can be that specific. She's reading records of historical events just after claiming that they didn't have these records. It's really weird that she doesn't see that incongruence in her thinking. So what's happening to me now is it's starting to do my head in a bit. So what I'm going to do for a minute is I'm just going to take a diversion to make myself feel better. This is 12 clever things you never knew WD-40 could do. Now, I didn't promise you this. I didn't tell you it was going to happen. But I decided in my own brain, if this starts to get me wound up and start making me... I don't want to be negative on the internet. I don't want to be a bully. I'm not supposed to be here going... I'm supposed to be having fun. I'm supposed to be having fun. I'm supposed to be smiling, spreading joy. So, this is my... We're not going to see them all now. I'm just going to show you one. Then we'll go back to Tartaria. And if it gets me down again, we'll see another WD-40 thing. And that'll cheer me up and stop me from feeling so negative. Repel insects and keep them off your car's grille. If you'd like to drive more than 5 minutes during warm months without your car's front grille becoming a metallic graveyard for any and all bugs, spray it with WD-40 before you hit the road. Instead of dying and hardening in the sun, the bugs will slide right off, still dead, obviously, leaving you with much easier cleanup jobs. P.S. You can also use it to loosen bird poo after it calcifies on your hood. So there you go. It's a bit rank and a bit morbid, so it didn't even cheer me up. So we'll have a look at the second one. WD-40 can remove gum from shoes or carpet or hair. Now that's a good one. I didn't know it could do that. It's fantastic at lifting sticky or hardened things like that gum stuck to the bottom of your shoe. For carpets, spray on top and all around the perimeter of the gum. Wait a few minutes and the majority should lift easily. Spray again and rub with a microfiber cloth to loosen what remains. You'll obviously want to clean the area with an odour eater such as soap, vinegar, baking soda or scented carpet cleaner to remove any lingering smell and oil. But yeah, WD-40 is good on chewing gum. I didn't know that. Didn't know that. Question the narrative. Right, let's get back to it.
The glue boiled over and caught fire, very easily spreading to the floor, covered in turpentine and wood chips. In the ensuing chaos, John tried to extinguish the fire with water, which made it even worse, because the water thinned the turpentine and spread the fire even more. Everyone inside got to get out of
She found that funny.
of time.
I'm picking on it now. She found that funny though.
The fire with water, which made it even worse.
Which made it even worse.
The ensuing chaos, John tried to extinguish the fire with water, which made it even worse.
It's not funny.
Because the water thinned the turpentine and spread the fire even more. Everyone inside got to get out of the building in the nick of time, but by the time the fire department came to the scene, the fire was out of control. The abundance of smoke made it impossible for the firemen to trace the source of the fire. On top of that, precisely that day, the fire chief happened to be out of town. So convenient. And the volunteers who came to...
No, it's not convenient. It's inconvenient, isn't it? Mind you, the fire chief is out of town. It wouldn't... it's not going to go down in record, is it, as a notable thing? Unless there's a fire. In which case, it is going to go down in record as a notable thing. It's inconvenient. It's not an example of, like, some conspiracy theory, is it? These sort of things happen all the time.
The scene made a mistake.
What's the easiest way?
Shut up. You can shut up. She looks happy. She doesn't look happy anymore. That's because she's in an advert.
Too many hoses at once. And this led the water pressure to drop completely. And again, what you're seeing here is an underground building. And again, that doesn't look like wood. That looks...
No, that also does not look like it was built in the 1800s or, at all. At all. Definitely not built in the 1800s. Maybe originally built early, but definitely reconditioned. Do you know how I know? Because I can see the cement in the brickwork. I can see the difference in the colour and the technique. Pointing. That's how I know. But it's also a natural assumption, isn't it? Because it all looks very clean. Reconditioned bricks, very clean. Yeah, I'm just going to assume that wasn't built, the day after the fire or the day before. I'm going to assume it was a bit more modern.
It's like brick, but we're told that everything burned down because it was wood.
Well, everything except brick would. Most things would have been. They're not literally everything would have been wood, would it? Not literally everything.
But the main point of this is, 1889, and we always hear some outlandish story of how these things happened, and there always happens to be some coincidence, like the fire chief being out of town. Okay, so here we have the mystery of why Chattanooga raised its downtown by a level. This is Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I'm not going to read the whole article. If you want to, again, I'll leave a link in the description. But here it says, at some point in time...
What's annoying me now, and we're going to have another look at WG40 in a minute, because what's annoying me now is that I thought we were learning about this lost generation, but now we're learning about the raising of street levels. And I didn't do any research on the raising of street levels. I got prepared for the lost generation. So I don't know enough about this, but I'm sure that if we look into it, it's quite likely that these websites tell you how and why, and they don't mention mudfloods or great resets. So we looked into in the past about other cities that are built up and on top of previous layers, so to speak, like a layer cake. Rome's a good example of that. New York has that in its makeup in places, even though it's that modern. So some of these have this, and it turns out the reason is the buildings in the downtown were liable to flooding every few years. So they decided, look, we built these buildings on ground level. The ground level floods every few years. So we're going to raise the street level now that we've got all these modern techniques, industrial revolution, slave labour, get them working on that, raise the street level, sorts out the flooding. We can put like sewers in there and stuff. It's modern municipal, it's like modern city building. That's what you'd call it. And the reason it's happening all over the country at a similar sort of time is because new technologies, new populations, slave labour, that sort of thing.
Time, possibly between 1875 and 1905, which, 1890 is right in the middle of that. Chattanooga built up its roads and abandoned the first stories of the buildings in the downtown of the city. This is why when people comment on my channel telling me that all of these basement level windows were built there originally because they were always the basement, they were never the first floor, but no, a lot of them were the first floor.
Well, in this example, that's true, but that's not true for all basement windows, is it? It's a bit weird. If you're going to be a homeschooler teacher, you'd think you'd understand these sort of, imagine a Venn diagram. Basements with windows, basements that were originally first floors that have windows.
I also have to say, it's funny. Someone from another channel must have mentioned me in a derogatory way, because I have so many people commenting on my video about the Titans and the mud fossils and melted buildings, that video. So many people commenting on that with very snide comments. So
I hope, honestly, I'll big face this is important. I use these people and their ideas as a jump off point for a bit of fun, so that we can investigate the most interesting and wacky ideas for a bit of fun. It seems to be paying off on YouTube for me, because I've been doing a year of streaming variety stuff. This is the thing that YouTube is suggesting to people more often. They're searching for it, it's suggesting it. It's got me a few views. I'm not a big YouTuber. I'm not going to end up being a tartarian YouTuber. I'm not going to persist with this for the rest of my life. We're going to ride this wave for a little bit. We're going to carry on with our variety. That's what I'm at. But I'm not here to bully people. I'm not here to troll people. And the idea that she's got people coming to her channel to say snide things is a bit horrible. I don't know, however, what she's saying. She hasn't shown us any examples. Do you remember when I got trolled? I don't know if you do, but I showed you the examples. Kill yourself. Really horrible, mean things. I didn't just say they were horrible, mean. I showed you the examples. I read them out just to picture it didn't happen. But obviously people are going to go on her videos and are going to leave little snide comments, because if I were just watching this and not broadcasting, I might leave a comment to say, you realise these buildings were built like the things I've been saying here, and it might come across snide, which is why I want to make it clear. Let's not go there and bully her, but it's absolutely acceptable to question her narrative in her comments, because the video is called Question the Narrative. So if you're in her comments and you're not questioning her narrative, then you're missing a trick. Question every narrative, including hers. And for her to receive those comments, well, it's because she's made these videos. It's because she's made these videos. But I don't want her to feel bad. That's a big thing. I don't want her to feel bad. I don't just pick on her, you know. And I'm punching up because she's got 50,000 subs and I've got 50. I need subs. If you're watching, hit the like. If you're watching, subscribe.
I actually want to thank the person who sent them there because I'm getting a lot more views on that. So thank you. But yeah, I think that's what happened. You know, you've made it when people send their trolls after you. Anyway, anyway, as I got distracted.
She thinks she's made it. That was a really interesting. She got distracted. She laughed. It's strange. She's getting some sort of social status out of this.
I think that's what happened. You know, you've made it when people send their trolls after you. Anyway.
You've made it. What have you made? Like, she's getting some sort of internal perception of social status out of this. She's just told us. And that's a worry because... I'll go big face. That's a worry because if Michelle is gaining some sort of social status out of this, if she feels she's gaining some sort of social status out of this, that is a worry because Michelle really is...
Do you guys see this app right here?
No, don't worry about that app right there. Get out of my face with your obnoxious advert. Here's Michelle. Michelle is a homeschooling mother of 3, I think, and so she spends a lot of time at home, and when not at home she spends a lot of time out just wandering around the town. Apparently that's what she said, doing homeschooling, because they don't have a strict homeschooling setup. What they do is they do like 6 weeks of no schooling, she said, where they just do what they want. So she doesn't spend a lot of her time socializing. She's not at work. I mean, I'm guessing she's not at work because how can you have a full-time job and also have the kids at home and also teach them? So I'm guessing she's not at work, so she's not socializing in those ways. She's not able to gain any value, self-worth, self-affirmation from the standard values of society. You know, the standard values of our society, what you see, Elon Musk's doing well for himself, isn't he? He's doing well. Are you an Elon Musk? No, you stay at home with your 3 kids talking shit. So you don't get that sense of social value. No one's saying to you, well done, Michelle. Good job, Michelle. Are they? No one's doing that. So you might end up having a crushing sense of, a crushing absence of self-worth, a self-esteem problem maybe. You might have that. Certainly I've been through troubles with feelings of self-esteem and self-value because I've been well-educated. I mean, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet on that. What I meant was everyone else in my class, you know, 90% of them went to Oxford, Cambridge, something like that, became a lawyer, a doctor, and I decided I didn't want to go down that route of standard academic success and went for something different. So my measure of value has always been different. I'm not going to get a 100 grand job in the City of London doing my economics because I'm not even attempting it. But my peers are. So my feelings of self-worth and value can be measured against their success in a way. I've had to learn to do that different. I've had to learn that that's not what's important. Because if it's not really important to me, why am I still seeing it as a system of values? I don't know. Maybe Michelle's got the same issues. So for me, you know, I've got to find a different sense of self-worth and value than a monetary response to my work, than going to my job, sitting there from 9 to 5, going home, and there's my monetary measure of my value. You know, that's not how I operate. Same with Michelle. She can't operate like that, can she? She can't because she's got 3 kids. She's homeschooling, so she can't possibly excel in the world of work. But social value, social status, a feeling of self-worth is important to us. So she seems to have invented one by making weird videos on the internet about, like... It's strange because you'd think you'd separate the homeschooling and the conspiracy theory, but she's put them together. The homeschooling and the conspiracy theory. So it kind of, in a way, psychologically, what that's doing for her is she's getting people watching the conspiracy theory and she's putting it next to the homeschooling. So it kind of validates the homeschooling for her. Well, I get a lot of views on my videos and they're about homeschooling and conspiracy theories, but they're about homeschooling and I get a lot of views. So I must be good at homeschooling. People are coming to me for information. I must be good at homeschooling. Come on. I'm a bit of a special person here. I'm a bit of a big cheese in the homeschooling world, you know, proving to herself and the world that she's good at homeschooling by making a case for her, where you could say maybe, you know, you're doing the opposite. Maybe you're a bad homeschooler and you feel guilty, so you're having to make these videos to prove to yourself in the world that no, you're good, really. And alongside the view count and the subscriber count of bizarre conspiracy theory. And she's just told us, she's just literally told us that she gains social status and self-worth out of this, particularly when she gets trolled. So I don't believe that thing about the trolling. I think the thing about the trolling is her trying to say to the trolls, oh, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. In fact, I got more views, so it's good for me. No, but actually inside you don't feel like that. You feel like, I don't enjoy these people saying these mean things to me. But you try and twist it and turn it and be disingenuous about your feelings to make other people feel bad about what they're doing.
Getting a lot more views on that. So thank you. But yeah, I think that's what happened. You know, you've made it when people send their trolls after you. Anyway, I got distracted. At some point in time, possibly between 1875.
It's not like you, Michelle, to get distracted, is it? It's not like you to throw up random information from here, there, and anywhere, is it?
In 1905, Chattanooga built up its roads and abandoned the first stories of the buildings in the downtown of the city, turning them into basements. Today, no one knows exactly why or...
Because, of course, this is this is a video about the 1890 Enigma and the Lost Generation, but we are yet to qualify what the Enigma is and why this Lost Generation are anything except the way they were described by the literary giants of their time who coined the phrase.
How it happened. The popular theory is that Chattanooga raised its city a story to escape the devastating flooding the Tennessee River wrought every few years. So they don't know. They don't know why the town was built on top of another town, and you always have to wonder, where do they get all of that fill? You know, how do they fill up all those roads depending on how big the downtown was?
Slave labor.
But again, we have something else strange happening right around that time period.
Well, no, what's also interesting though, isn't it, that you're contending that this is a mud flood and that the reason that the street level has been raised is because it was flooded by mud. That's your contention. But what we're not seeing in these images is mud. These street levels have been raised, the new floor level has been put at ceiling level, but it's not all full of mud down here, it's a void. They installed pipe work. So they didn't lay it on top of a layer of mud. There was no layer of mud. If there were a layer of mud, there would still be mud, or you'd have the evidence of the mud being dug out, or you would have literally, you know, patches and splotches of mud on these wood frames and brickwork maybe. Even if it had been dug out, no one's going to go and clean the brickwork after you dig the mud out, are they? It's underground. Where's the mud?
We also have in 1890 that the census records were destroyed by fire. So there you go again. You know, 1890 and destruction. They seem to go hand in hand.
Well, 1890 and destruction go hand in hand if you pick out little bits of information at random. But 1890, I want to see some construction in the 1890s. I want to show you that 1890 constructions. Let's see if it was a notable year for destruction. Let's see if it was a notable... Oh, subcategories. God. Subcategories. Commercial buildings. There's even more subcategories than that. Theatres, towers, schools, residential buildings. All this stuff was built in 1890. God, there's such a lot. It's having to be... We've got the Black Eagle Dam, the Gosling Creek Dam, the Lake Cockatoo Dam, the Osage Mills Dam, the Winchester Dam and the Wrights Complex Lower Dam. So for a dam to burst, it wasn't a surprise. They were building a lot of them. We've been building Albert Dock Siemens Hospital, Jefferson Healthcare Hospital, John Seeley Hospital, Bensham Hospital, Kendray Hospital, New York Cancer Hospital, Royal Victoria Hospital Bournemouth, Royal Victoria Hospital Folkestone, Elizabeth Garrett Hospital and Obstetric Hospital, the Elliot Hospital, the Fergus Falls Regional Treatment Centre, Glasgow Victoria Royal Infirmary, St Clyde. Do you see how much stuff we've been building in 1890? The energy infrastructure The electric light, oh God, electricity and the electric light works building. What a huge thing to have built in Walla Walla, Washington in 1890. What a massive step forward. What a massive step forward. The Ore hydroelectric power plant in 1890. What a massive step forward. The Potrero generating station in 1890 in California. What a huge step forward. Wapping hydraulic power station in the UK. London's hydraulic power company. Huge step forward. So we've got, I mean, that's just one subcategory of one subcategory of one subcategory. So if you want to look through all those categories and find out all the stuff that was built in 1890, it will directly counter your argument that things were associated with destruction in 1890. So, you know, there's pros and cons.
And lastly, before actually talking a little bit more about the lost generation, I just wanted to show you. So as you can see up here, this is from a website about Ellis Island. And if this was on a timeline, so as you can see here, again, if you want to read through it, you can go back and read through it. But 1893 to 1902, so again, right in that time period, on June 15th, 1897, with 200 immigrants on the island, a fire breaks out in one of the towers in the main building and the roof collapses. Though no one is killed, all Ellis Island records dating back to 1840 and the Castle Garden era are destroyed.
You do get these examples of times when, you know, records are destroyed. That's one of those things that happens, isn't it? Records were made, written on paper. You've got these fires. You know, we talked about this in a previous broadcast. There wasn't that much fire service. There was a lot more dangerous fire stuff, Industrial Revolution, a lot more stuff built of wood and paper, a lot more burning happened. But it doesn't mean, because their records on Ellis Island, the records they had burned, it doesn't mean there were no records of Ellis Island. Otherwise, how would we know about this? What a strange thing to suggest. Just before it, the bit you didn't want to read, the first Ellis Island immigration station opened on January the 1st, 1892. Opening on January the 1st, 1892. It's not destruction. As 3 large ships wait to land, 700 immigrants pass through Ellis Island that day, and nearly 500,000 follow over the course of the first year. Over the next 5 decades, more than 12 million people will pass through the island on their way to the United States. That's one of those pieces of information that could fill in that gap. Why is this happening? But she ignores it because she's not, because she's got confirmation bias, because she doesn't want to promote those ideas. She wants to promote other ideas. And she's financially, I forgot to say this, she's financially benefiting from this, isn't she? She's got a YouTube channel where the more people that watch these rubbish videos, the more money she gets. That's how that works. And she's probably struggling for money because she's homeschooling. Says it doesn't have to be expensive. She says in this video, homeschooling doesn't have to be expensive. And God help you, if it was, you wouldn't be able to do it because, look, you're not living in some mansion. You haven't got, you know, money coming in out your ears, have you? Like most of us, like normal people like me. Although I keep my doorway a little bit more. I'm not going to diss. I'm not dissing on cleanliness. You know, it's difficult for people. That's my actual point. Homeschooling can't be expensive if you're not rich. You're at the mercy of your own budget. Whereas if you send your children to a school, you're at the mercy of the budget of the state. And they've got a bit more money for that. So yeah, homeschooling better not be expensive, huh? Because it's important that your YouTube brings in money, isn't it? If you're on that end of the scale, if you're like me, where we're not earning shitloads of money from other stuff, you're kind of looking at these YouTube numbers. I don't get YouTube money yet. I'm not monetized yet on this channel, but you look at the little check. I get $10 a month from True Binaural, and when that comes in, $10 a month, I think that's a little bit more that I can afford. Thank God for that, because I'm at that end of the scale, just like this lady. You know, I'm not some wealthy landowner. I'm not some landlord. You know, I haven't got business interests bringing in money while I'm not working. You know, just worth pointing out, isn't it?
So not only do we have all of these
Hello David, let me read your comment. In the mudflood mine, it makes no sense to excavate a basement for the new construction, but it does make sense to dig out the same amount of material in the more confined space of a mud-flooded basement. It's true, isn't it? It's true. They just miss these like really obvious markers that they're wrong. And it's weird because they themselves bring them up to show them to
things
us.
happening, but we also have some pretty substantial records being destroyed, usually by fire. So we have first the 1890 census, and now we have the records being destroyed on Ellis Island. And so I think that a lot of it ties back to many of the people that we do look at as being, that I look at least. I can't say we because I don't know if I speak for you, but yeah, I would look at that as the lost generation.
When she said we, I thought she meant her and her friends. I didn't assume she was speaking for me. The lost generation got tied in there for some reason. Again, there were fires, there were destructive aspects. Of course, the lost generation. Here they're all posing on a steam train. But that wouldn't make any sense because there wouldn't be steam trains because we had free power before that. Why are we bothering with steam? It's almost as if we're laying the brand new, I mean, it looks pretty new, doesn't it? They definitely didn't dig that out of the mud. It's almost as if we're laying the brand new technology as we go and celebrating it and excited by it. I don't know.
So here are some children from the Orphan Train. There were hundreds of thousands.
The what? How do I know that's that? How do I know that is that? I don't. I've got no way of knowing that these are children from the Orphan Train. I've got no way of... I'm just going to have to check what she's saying because I don't even know if it exists. But let's just see it. It probably does. Orphan Train. And there'll probably be quite a legitimate explanation, like I said. The Orphan Train movement was a supervised welfare programme that transported children from crowded eastern cities to foster homes in rural areas of the Midwest. The Orphan Trains operated between 1854 and 1929, relocating about 250,000 children. The co-founders of the Orphan Train movement claimed these children were orphaned, abandoned, abused or homeless, but this was not always true. They were mostly children of new immigrants and the children of the poor and destitute families living in these cities. Criticisms include ineffective screening of caretakers, insufficient follow-ups on placements, and that many children were used as strictly slave farm labour. So it wasn't one train. It was the name of like a concept, the Orphan Train. I'm going to put you on the Orphan Train. Do you remember the Underground Railroad? That's another similar concept, but in a different way. Underground Railroad was a network of secret routes and safe houses established in America in the early to mid 19th century to liberate slaves. So it worked the other way. Instead of bad people enslaving people and taking them out to the fields, it worked the other way with that, with the Underground Railroad. It where's my... I don't need that. I've got too many windows again. I've got too many windows. So the Orphan Train was like the Underground Railroad, but in reverse. It was stealing kids from destitute families. I suggested earlier in the broadcast the reason we would have more orphans at this time is because during the Industrial Revolution there was a steep rise in industrial accidents. And that all of a sudden, where someone might have worked in the fields all their life and made it through to be a ripe old age of 60 maybe at this time, in the time of Industrial Revolution, more and more people were finding that industrial accidents ended their lives earlier, and suddenly their children were orphans. We've also got things like pox, malaria. Malaria is probably just off the top of my head. There was smallpox and influenza, things like that would kill people. There was a reason there might have been a lot of orphans, but actually I wasn't completely accurate. That was just my suggestion. That was my guess. It turns out, to make up the numbers, they stole the children of new immigrants and poor and destitute families living in cities. So there you go. That's the Orphan Train. Here's a picture of some orphans on a train, but it is not the Orphan Train because there is no the Orphan Train. There is no, there's no actual, engine that's got the words "the Orphan Train" written on it. It doesn't actually exist. It's a concept. It's a concept.
I believe. I can't say we because I don't know if I speak for you, but yeah, I would look at that as the lost generation. So here are some children from the Orphan Train. There were hundreds of thousands, I believe. We'll go back.
250,000.
I can read a little bit about that then.
But she would be checking that on Wikipedia, because I can see it says Wikipedia Orphan Train at the top left there. It's that same window I've got. She's got it up on the top left. So it's strange that she's read that window that I've read, and yet she's misrepresenting it.
Actually, let's just do that right now. Oh, that's not even it. Let me find it.
Okay. There it is.
So the Orphan Train movement was a supervised welfare program.
This, I can't get this. I can't fathom this. We use Wikipedia on our stream to debunk these idiot ideas. And people sometimes say to me that Wikipedia is not the truth. Just people write what they want on the internet. And I said it in the other broadcast that, you know, overall the truth irons out the lies in that system. Overall, society comes together to, you know, I believe the truth wins out. That's what I'm not going to go over it again. I believe, but if it doesn't, fine, we can look at a different resource. But it baffles me that Michelle herself is using Wikipedia as her primary source of research. Because if you're an educator, Wikipedia is not good enough. Do you know, I'm using it on the internet to make general points because it's got a lot of information I can quickly... Sorry, I tapped the microphone. I don't want the mic to be going... Educator, Wikipedia is not good enough. I'm using it on the internet to make general points. Let me just check. It's got a lot of information I can quickly... Sorry, I tapped them. No, we're okay. Like, it's okay for what we're doing here, isn't it? And it's okay if you're at home and you just want to find something out. It's good for that. But if you were to write a report, an academic dissertation or a lesson plan, if you were to produce a video on the internet, this wouldn't be good enough. When I make videos, like I did, this is a good example then. I'll look at this. Look, Fly Strike. I did a video on True by Non ASMR about Fly Strike, and they've got lots of different, you know, vet websites. But this is the one I used, NAIDS, which is the... this is the National Animal Disease Information Service. So it's like the authority. On this. So I use this as the jumping off point. And then when they said things about Fly Strike, they reference... I don't want to... You know, we're not going to go over Fly Strike. It's a bit horrible. But they reference these... do they? Or am I just tripping? They should reference studies. And I should be able to follow up the studies. There's some statistics here. I don't know whether... But my point is, I'm not using Wikipedia, am I? I'm doing actual research with... reputable sources, because some people don't think Wikipedia is good enough. And if you're just finding out information, it's okay, but if you're doing reports, if you're reporting on the internet, creating videos, journalism, if you're doing reports on the internet, creating videos, history, if you're teaching people things, you know, just having the Wikipedia page isn't good enough. What you actually want to do, like Gertrude Stein is a good example, yeah? This is a bit of an overview of Gertrude Stein, isn't it? But if we go to the bottom here, there'll be all this other stuff. This is where they got the information, look. This is where they got the information. Just going to pick one random thing. That's too random, it seems. Here is the archives at Yale. This is the papers containing manuscripts of writing, letters and clippings of these authors. Now you could look into it, couldn't you? You could look into it. Oh, look, the dates. 1890, Tolka's family moves to Seattle, Washington, returning several years later to San Francisco. So, look, they were over there in the same time. They're part of the generation, aren't they, in a way? And it's interesting they moved to America at the same time as everyone else did. So, look, there's all this information here. There's all this stuff. If you want to go and have a good look, you know, if you go and have a good, oh look, there's further reading. If you want to go and have a good look, you can, you know. And if you go to university, you end up doing that sort of stuff. But if you're just making a throwaway video on YouTube and using Wikipedia, I worry that it's not acceptable. It's certainly not acceptable to me, because you're claiming knowledge of a deeper conspiracy. So using Wikipedia as evidence is not really... I just don't think it's acceptable, is it? I don't think it's enough. Orphan Trains in another nest of... yeah. We get Orphan Trains, another nest of worms. It's what they do, isn't it? They add another thread to the tapestry and you end up pulling the wrong string. In Tartaria, we were transported to dig out the mud, but then who dug out the railroads? If the orphans did, they'd have got their destination without the locomotives. Don't worry about logic.
Children from crowded eastern cities of the United States to foster homes located largely in rural areas of the Midwest. The orphan trains operated between 1854 and 1929, relocating about 250,000 children. The co-founders of...
Interestingly, this orphan train movement is just about tipping us into the lost generation, but it's still not quite talking about the lost generation, is it? Not quite, which is a shame, because I really hoped she would.
The orphan train movement claimed that these children were orphaned, abandoned, abused, or homeless, but this was not always true. They were mostly the children of new immigrants and the children of generation. Yeah, this isn't only 1890, but it still falls right in that area, and it falls, a lot of the children do fall into that time period that they are called the lost generation. And if any children were certainly lost, it would be those in the orphan train movement. And you have to wonder, yes, they do have some reasons that they were orphaned or abandoned, abused, homeless. 250,000 children, though? I can't help but wonder if there really was another reason that there were all of these children.
Well, just giving you the reasons. We're talking about millions of immigrants. We're talking about millions, you know, approaching 12 million over a period of time. So 250,000 children doesn't sound like... It's about relative numbers, isn't it?
It just doesn't make sense to me. That is a lot.
It doesn't make sense to her because it's a big number. So what that shows is actually that Michelle has a problem with big numbers and making sense of the world. Not that the world doesn't make sense. It's a strange thing to say. Well, I don't really understand that. Therefore, it's a lie. Isn't it? Is she not going to acknowledge that she might not be the world's greatest authority on being smart? Is she not going to acknowledge that? Is she? I don't think I'm the world's greatest authority on being smart. I think if I don't understand something, it might be because I'm failing to understand it. That's what I think about me. But Michelle feels if she can't understand it, there's something wrong with it. She must be a real joy. She must be a real joy to work with. Well, she doesn't work, does she? So, but she must be a real joy to spend time with, because if she doesn't get it, you're in the wrong. You can't teach her because she doesn't understand, and it's wrong. I'm not understanding this maths. This maths is difficult to me. Maths is rubbish, it's wrong. Oh, but Michelle, if we sit down and talk about it, I can show you how. No, you can't show me how because it's wrong. How could I learn something that's wrong? There's no point. By having that attitude that if I don't understand it, it is at fault. It's almost like a hugely arrogant, but really a self-defense mechanism. You know, I've done psychology, I've done sociology, I can speak on these topics. It's a self-defense mechanism. Again, she feels vulnerable. She feels out of touch, out of sync. She feels like she doesn't understand the world. She doesn't understand the history. She's telling us that's the fact. She's told us that's the fact. She doesn't understand history. She's got people online bullying her for her ideas that she promotes and makes money off. She's finding it difficult. She's finding it difficult. So for her then to learn something, she'd have to be vulnerable to the idea that she is at fault. Not at fault, but not right. She doesn't know. She's not that smart. She didn't go to... Did she go to university? I don't know. Do you need to go to university to be smart? No. But to do the level of study on any particular subject over a period of 3 years and write a dissertation that gives you an authority and a way of thinking about other subjects, so that when these things come up, you might not be, oh, I don't understand that, that's difficult to me. You might actually be able to say, okay, this is new to me, but I'll apply the same principles and I'll get to the answer. So, but she doesn't have that. So her defense mechanism is, it's wrong. And if I twist and pick and choose and say this, now I'm the smart one, the rest of the world is the dummy, they're all idiots, and I'm the smart one. And you know what? It's really important to her to have that feeling, because she's teaching her kids from home. So if it turns out that she's not right, she's not that smart, she's misled and a bit ignorant, then she's failing her children. And deep down, she knows she's failing her children. And that feeling is a terrible feeling for a mother, because she loves them. So I would suggest that the best thing Michelle could do would be to send her children to school, so that they're getting the best education they could possibly get, the best opportunities, the biggest budget, the greatest funding. Send them to school and just love them. Do her best to love them. Keep the house tidy for them. Repaint that door and love them. That would be my priority list. Yeah, and I'm not her. I don't know. You know, who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? I just worry about the children, that's all. So we're going to have a look at one more thing that WD-40 can do, because I am getting a little bit cross. It turns out WD-40 can help you untangle jewellery. What? I don't wear jewellery, so I wouldn't know about this. I'm not interested. But necklaces can dissolve into an impossible chaotic mess, apparently. WD-40 is great at disjoining things. It won't instantly unknot everything, but it will make the knot much shorter, apparently. Spray it with WD-40, there you go. It can remove surface stains. WD-40 can lift crayon marks from laptop and TV screens. Though it's advisable to spray the WD-40 onto a cloth and not the screen itself to prevent drips in the machine. That's interesting. Okay, we'll go back to Michelle's nonsense now.
A lot of children. There were an estimated, here it says, 30,000 in New York City alone in the 1850s in foster homes. So there's more to the story that they're not telling us. Here's just another photo of some children on the Orphan Train. And I have to say that I think that it's really interesting that...
It's not the Orphan Train. She's got confused. It's a train. And I suppose you could say they're on the Orphan Train because they're part of that concept, aren't they? Assuming this photo is what it is that she says it is. But it just appears to be children. And I can't even guarantee that's a train. I can't see the wheels. I mean, it appears to be. It appears to be. I could take that photo tomorrow. I could construct that photo. I could get some models and put it together. I could Photoshop up a photo like that tomorrow. So you need more evidence than just this is that. But
I watched a documentary about the Orphan Train, and there were people from this one town, and they were trying to get the records. They were trying to get the actual names of their parents. They had arrived there. They were adopted by families, but they wanted to know who their real families were. And a couple of the people actually had the same last name. And at least in the documentary, they didn't make the connection that they could possibly be related. But I found it strange.
What's strange to me is that you've been watching a documentary, that you're not going to tell us what the documentary was, who directed it or anything. There's a lot of documentaries these days, aren't there? Like Ancient Aliens, that's a documentary, isn't it? Either you're watching Werner Herzog or you're watching the History Channel. There's a wide and vast difference. So I'm now to take your word that something you saw on telly is evidence. That's not how it works.
That, yeah, there were children with the same last name. And I also found out that a lot of these kids, they didn't even really know their last name. They would assign them a last name. Say if they were found at a church, they would give them the last name Church. If they, were given or found, maybe by a blacksmith shop, they would be given the last name Smith or, Walker, or just, they were just kind of assigned generic names having to do with how they were found or how they ended up there. So even though people may search for their ancestry, those who were in the orphan trains, a lot of times they won't actually find it because this isn't their real last name. And even my own personal story is that my grandfather, he would not tell, his last name was Wilson, but he wouldn't tell
Because he was found near a volleyball?
anyone his real last name. So apparently Wilson was not his real last name.
So what? I thought they didn't know the real... What? How come he's got two?
He wouldn't tell anyone.
Could it be? Wait. Could it be that her grandfather wouldn't tell anyone his last name because he was an orphan? Or could it be that her grandfather wouldn't tell anyone his last name because it was Hitler? Or Wilhelm or something. Maybe he was a Nazi that moved over from the old Germany. Maybe he was one of the bad... No, that's the wrong... Is it the wrong generation? No, it's not, is it? It's the right generation, isn't it? How old's she? She's what, in her 40s? If I'm being generous. So... her dad would have been like... No, yeah, her granddad could have been a Nazi, couldn't he? Could have been. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying he was. I'm not being mean. But it's weird, isn't it, that some people wouldn't want to tell people their last names.
His real last name. And that's just another story from that whole generation. So many mysteries, so many questions that we have that it seems like they're not going to be answered. So here are some other children from the Orphan Train movement, all lined up.
Train to Hogwarts. That Harry Potter's got a lot to answer for, you know.
Looking spiffy.
We're all here now. Look, we're all here now in chat, right? If we get capital K, I'll show you the vocal show reel. But I'm not doing it without capital K. I promised him I'd show you me doing all my different accents. I'm not doing it without him. But I've got it lined up as a little treat. I've got it lined up as a little treat. So if we get capital K as well, next time he's in chat, we're doing the vocal show reel. I'll line it up every episode until we get him.
And this was the first one that I showed you. Here are a bunch of them posing on the Orphan Train. What a photo op. A bunch of orphans.
It's not the Orphan Train. There is no such thing as the Orphan Train. It's quite funny though, the way she keeps saying it.
Orphans who are getting ready to be shipped off to foster homes. Look at the poses.
I don't get it. What do you mean, look at the poses?
It seems so surreal.
Seems surreal. You can chuff off with your Smile Direct aligners. See, I even knew what they were called because I've heard that so many times. My teeth are staying how they are. I'm not giving you any of my money for a plastic bit of shit you put in your mouth.
Have you ever heard of the incubator babies? Yes. Well, we'll get back to her later. Let me see. Here we go.
Factual Entertainment, History Channel. I don't know if you know the History Channel. I don't know if you know that the History Channel is known around the world with such high regard. I don't know if you're aware that the History Channel is known around the world in such high regard. Documentaries, facts, factual facts. Get your facts straight. Get your facts. Where do you get your facts? You've got to hunt them out. Factual. I'm doing a dissertation. I'm taking history at university and I'm doing my dissertation, which means I'll be watching a lot of the History Channel. So I need to be left in peace, thank you.
Baby incubators. From Boardwalk Sideshow to Medical Marvel.
Now, it may be that the History Channel does bring up some things from history at times. Or it may be that they search for the most outrageous, shocking, freak show-esque storylines to raise and conjecture. They might throw around some conjecture. They want the clicks. Bottom line, they want the clicks. The History Channel is not... The History Channel is not a global authority on history. It's an entertainment medium. The British Natural History Museum when you go to the Natural History Museum, they've probably got one in America as well, they don't tend to have the History Channel on in the foyer. They're not showing you videos from the History Channel. It's not known as an it's not known as even an accepted form of... It's not even accepted that the things they say aren't... I mean, how do you... This is... I can't go on. We're going to have to go back to look at these clever things that WD-40 can do. You know WD-40? You've heard of that, haven't you? WD-40. You know what that is? It's a little spray. It's a little degreaser and lubricant. And I found this article with 12 clever things it can do. And that makes me feel a little bit happier when she breaks my brain with her whatever it is she's saying. Removed unwanted paint from your car's exterior. That's good, because I reversed my car into my mom's car. Here's a good story. Try and keep my car really nice. I used to have a dog car. I used to have a rough rescue dog, and I used to take him in the woods every day, and the car got rubbish. It got turned into a rubbish mess. But that was only like a little run around, little hatchback. So when I got the latest motor vehicle with the cage in the back for the dog, like proper cage in the back for the dog, tried to keep it really nice, and I managed to reverse it into my mom's car. So it's got a little white paint, and her car's got a little bit of black paint on it. Not big damage, but just, you know, proof that I did. And yeah, exactly. Your dad put that on everything. If you want things to move, use WD-40, and if you want things to stay where they are, use gaffer tape, duct tape. That's the rule. If you want things to move, use WD-40. If you want them to stay where they are, use gaffer tape or duct tape. The only other 2 tools that should be in your toolbox, you should have 4 tools in your toolbox. Screwdriver, Phillips head, obviously. Hammer, WD-40 and tape. That's all you need. So yeah, that's made me a bit happier now, hasn't it? That's made me a bit happier. So now we can go back to the the bizarre question. These are the
In the late 19th century, thousands of premature babies' lives were saved while attracting oglers at amusement parks. And so that's the man who was said to have saved the lives of babies. But yeah, they were a common sideshow in the late 19th and early 20th century. Incubator babies, and they will tell you that they were placed there because the hospitals didn't want to use the incubators, so it was, you know, to keep these infants alive. But they were actually shown around like circus freaks.
Got news for you. Most of the medical practice was like, there were a lot. This is one of those things, isn't it? Now we've got to investigate sideshows, circus freaks, medical malpractice, and the confusion between a medical disorder and something that should be shown at a sideshow. The world was different then. The Elephant Man. So what's wrong with like a brand new technology, infant incubators? They're trying to capitalise on it in the new capitalist world. The ideas, the ethics are out there. They're being, you know, they're out there. They're confused. This is what happened. What's wrong with that? Oh, there are things wrong with it. Maybe a flat screwdriver. Yeah, maybe. Well, you've got to choose one or the other. You can have whichever screwdriver you want. I'll allow that. You can use a flat screwdriver. It's just that whichever one you've got, you'll need it for the other screws. You can, to be honest, you can sort of get the Phillips heads out with the flat screwdriver. Yeah, I'll change that. Yeah, we'll take the flat screwdriver instead. Fine. You've only got 4 tools though. Don't start filling that. But as soon as you start allowing yourself more than 4 tools, you've got an overflowing box of crap with like all sorts. You can never find the thing you want. It's useless. Just take the 4. Look, infant incubators. They were a marvel of the age. So this is what happened. I don't know why it's being thrown at us as some sort of evidence for some conspiracy. I don't know why, but it's an entirely different angle.
Here we have some people standing in front of, it says infant incubators, and these are at the World's Fairs. Infant incubators with living infants.
Again, we've got this problem where she just shows us a photograph, and you know, I can show you a photograph. Look, check this out. This is going to be great. You'll love this. This will be brilliant. Horse with a cat's head. Horse with a cat's head. Look. That's a photograph there, look. Isn't it? That's a photograph. Open an image in a new tab. I'm not going to tell you where it's from. I mean, they've got their... Quite cleverly, they've put their handle in it. So, but that's a photograph, and that's a cat with a horse, cat horse. So nobody knows where these cat horses are from, but they appeared around the 1800s, the 1890s, and that's proof of conspiracy. So we'll move on to the next picture now. You know, that's what she's doing, essentially. That's what she's doing, with even less accountability than someone's gamer tag in the image. It's just, I mean, I could make that picture on Photoshop tomorrow without any people in it. I could draw you that picture in pixel art and it would look bang crisp. So what? You need something else as well. Exhibition at a World's Fair. Hardly a side. Yeah, exactly. The World's Fair is not a sideshow, is it? It's a different concept. The World's Fair is showing off all the latest technology. So it would make sense now that this would be there.
I sure hope that they're living, because I would hope they wouldn't show any other kind of infants. But again, I always mention how impeccably dressed they were in these times, and I have... Because these people at the World's Fair are in their top clothes, because these are wealthy people that are putting on an exhibit at the World's Fair or attending, they're in their top clothes, doesn't mean everyone was always impeccably dressed, does it? But we also had a very heavy conservative religious aspect where women had to be covered from head to toe. So you're going to get a lot less range in the clothing. There wasn't shops. You couldn't order Nike on the internet and go down the charity shop and get yourself a new pair of... You know, there was... You go to a tailor and they would produce you your clothes and they'd be similar, and like this... there weren't a million different... They'd never even invented caps. No one was wearing a cap. Scruffy clothes hadn't even been invented. No t-shirts. Get away! You wouldn't believe it, would you? You wouldn't believe fashion in the 1890s. Well, you now are using that. We're supposed to be talking about the lost generation, but now we're talking about the fashion choices of the 1890s. So again, if you're not educated on fashion choices of the 1890s, it's going to be hard. You're going to be baffled. She's throwing you some other curveballs. What these people do is they throw enough curveballs till there's something that you are not expert on and you can't categorically say that's not true. And it sits in your mind as a little seed. Well, I can't categorically say that's not true, so it might be true. Maybe she's making sense. I don't know. I don't know. If they can get you thinking that, they've won. Because you don't know they're telling you lies. They're making up shit for their own personal financial benefit. You don't know she's not just making up shit for her own personal financial benefit until you research it and find it out. And when you do, you can say she's just making up shit either for her own personal financial benefit or personal sense of status. Or maybe she just doesn't understand the world properly. But... it's not fair to construct an argument with random conjecture at every turn, is it? I once went to see the Inca Babies, a new wave 80s band. Cool, man. I have to say that a lot of times I wonder
how staged these
things were. I mean, we stage photos nowadays anyway, but there are a lot of people who even believe that these were just actors and actresses who put on period clothing to kind of push through a narrative.
Well, sometimes that happens. We make films. I don't know if you've seen the films, right? I don't know if you've seen the films. What's that one about oil? Well, it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter which films. I'll just use this one. I don't know if you've heard of the films, right? But here's a photo. Here's a photo, right, that proves that in the 1800s, for a start, it wasn't all black and white. We had colour photos back then. And it proves that, well, the mudfloods and the... or whatever. Or it might be that these people just dressed up in costume when we took their photo. No one can tell because we don't have any records. Or there might be another way of looking at that, mightn't there? Question that narrative. Make sure you question that narrative.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I certainly wouldn't put anything past anyone. But so there's one, and then here's some people going through. I think this was at Coney Island.
Right, here's the problem though. If you are going to be creating a narrative and faking these things, you know, if it is going to be fake news, if it is going to be made up photographs that, you know, you don't know, the fact that we have a multitude of them from different people, the fact that there was more than one news outlet reporting on the incubator babies at the World's Fair, incubator babies at World's Fair, the fact that there were like more than one outlet. Look, oh my God! It really, really makes me cross. I'm going to have to go back to the WD-40 for a minute. Let's see another thing WD-40 can do for us. I mean, it's probably not very good for the environment, but... Oh, it softens leather. Well, I don't use leather because I'm a vegan. I think animals should be allowed to keep their skins until they die. And then, you know, when my nan died, we didn't skin her because it would be a waste of her leather, would we? We left her, you know, naturally to... So I think we should just respect the dead and leave them to... You know, I don't think we need to skin the dead in order to create gloves. In fact, we definitely don't. We've got that. That's factual. We don't. So that one didn't make me feel very good. Lube shovel sleds. Ah, that's a good idea. Helps the snow slide off your shed, your sludge, your shovel. That's a good idea. I'm going to get the WD-40 out next time I'm doing my snow shoveling. Good idea. Okay, I like that. At least there's someone with some sense out there in the world. So she's just used the very first... We've looked at incubator babies, and there's her picture. It's from the New York Times. There's her picture that she used. She's not... What she does is she goes on Google, types the thing in, and then the very first thing that comes up, that's what she's got onto. Very first thing that comes up on the image searches. She probably doesn't look through... She probably doesn't bother to look through this. Here. The words, because it's all words. How would anyone understand that? Could be fake news. Why don't we just look at the pictures? It's easier for me. If it's easier for you to just look at the pictures, if it's easier for you to just look at the pictures and then pick the first one as your evidence, you know, what a lazy way to behave. Well, fortunately, what it's led us to is... Look, there's the Jewish Standard Times of Israel. There's their photographs and research and story. There's ABC News, different photographs, research and story. So there will be, categorically we can state now, a multiple collection of different photographers all taking photographs of the same thing. Different people reporting on the same thing. Different news outlets reporting on the same thing. Days gone by, today, you know, but back then there would have been different news outlets reporting on the same thing. So that's why we can now corroborate. It wasn't one person faking their pictures, because if that happened, all these other people wouldn't have been able to do the same thing at the same time independently. So we know that to be fact. Or at least Occam's razor, closest to fact as we're going to get with our, you know, with our questioning of the narrative.
And they are just spectators going through to look at all the babies in the incubators. Babies that a lot of times you have to wonder, where did they actually come from? And a lot of people will mention that you could adopt these babies from the incubators. And so far, I haven't been able to find a whole lot of evidence supporting that people could just go and adopt these babies.
Bear in mind, she's using DuckDuckGo as well. Look, it says at the top there. Dark web browser, DuckDuckGo, for the conspiratorially minded.
But I do know that it happened, because here we have an actress. Her name was Marie Dressler, and yeah, she adopted an incubator baby.
Why is it acceptable for a news article clipped from a possibly spurious... I mean, what it says in the National Enquirer isn't news, is it? What it says in the National Enquirer isn't news. That could be the equivalent of the National Enquirer of its day. Oh, it's New York. New York. That's the I mean, I don't know what that clipped from. The Evening World, New York, New York. I don't know what that publication... I don't know about their validity. But I know that these days... you've got these publications that, you know, puff out spurious ideas. No, absolute rubbish. This could have been a rag like that, couldn't it? Could have been a rag like that. If I type in New York, New York, I'm not going to get the answer I need, am I? That's a problem there. You're on newspapers.com, World, New York. I mean, I have to do so again. Now I have to learn about another thing. But I do notice it was clicked by Vaudeville Seeker. So I'm sure the goings on and reportings of the vaudeville scene are possibly not the most valid explanations of things, are they? But she's happy to take this as factual information. It's a fact. I do know it happened because I saw this on the internet in my research. Right? She knows that's a fact because of that. But anything else that happened, not factual. Can't be possibly buildings, mudslides. Anything else we find, not factual, made up rubbish. The equivalent of the National Enquirer, that's fine, that's fact. How dare she? How dare she? That's one of the worst. It feels like she's laughing at me now. It feels like she's deliberately trying to mislead idiots. Because if you will listen to that and you will accept that, we're going to have to look at some more WD-40. Why is she concerned about adopting babies? she's I can't deal with the comments now even. I'm going to have to look at some more WD-40. That really made me cross. Clean paint from floors and keep paintbrushes soft. Oh, you always use terps for that, don't you? But what a nice idea. Just a little spray of WD-40 because terps smells horrible, doesn't it? Maybe that'd work. I'll try that. I need another one. I'm still cross. Spruce up plastic patio furniture. These days we throw that away. You see a lot of that discarded in the environment, in rivers and stuff. These days we sort of throw that away and upgrade to the latest new IKEA furniture. And in about 20 years we'll be throwing that away. But we could spruce it up with WD-40. So I might give that a try next time I see it discarded. We've got one of those chairs at the allotment that we found discarded at the allotment that I sometimes sit on. So I'm going to spruce it up with WD-40 now. Okay, that's calmed me down. But how dare she, you know, how dare she? Yeah, you're not in a conspiracy. No, you actually deal with real babies. But, you know, we don't need people like you to pipe up. What we need is news articles from Vaudeville Press 1904 to evidence the things that were really happening.
So this was in 1904, and it says Marie Dressler adopts a baby.
Hang on.
It's a Coney Island incubator mite.
How are we having a World's Fair in 1904? It's just 10 years after the destruction of the world. 10 years after. I thought 1890 was all about destruction. Well, this seems quite constructive. Incubators and World's Fair. Get off.
And is to be brought up in style and bear the actress's name. So here we do have one newspaper article about an actress, and she was a rather famous actress who adopted an incubator baby here.
But you don't believe in the news. You believe in fake media and fake news, and like it's all rubbish. Well, you can't have it both ways.
She's mentioned in another newspaper, so Colorado Historic Newspapers Collection, and it just mentions right here.
It doesn't mention which newspaper, does it? Again, it doesn't mention which newspaper. It's just hard for me to. I'm not. Oh, the Castle Rock Journal. Okay, I'm not going to cross-reference this or bother because we're now away on some mad tip, off on something else. Away on some mad tip, off on something else.
What it says here, Marie. Here. Oh, is it Dressier or is it Dressler? I think they just spelled it wrong. Let me go back and see. It is Dressler. Okay. So, Marie Dressler, the actress, has adopted one of those incubator babies, and her press agent will now have something substantial to
A press agent.
So here again, you know, it is shown that one of these incubator babies was indeed adopted. So it just raises the question of going back to the lost generation of individuals born between 1883 and 1900. And yeah, not all of the years add up exactly right, but
No.
How often are we not told the truth about our timeline or lots of other stuff?
Yeah, exactly. How often are we not told the truth? Well, in this 19 minutes of video that you've put together that I've been watching, like, we've been not told the truth about every 3 or 4 seconds. You constantly barrage us with inane, random, untruthful, illogical. It's a constant thing with you, Michelle. It's constant. It's constant. I worry for your children being homeschooled. David's got about 5 years. You're just like me there, David. That's what I do. I buy job lots of what I like. Now, I made the mistake some years ago of not buying multiple pairs of the same pair of shoes. I didn't have enough money. I only bought 2. They wore out. They're gone. Never get them again. But I've got 3 pairs now of the same shoe. 3 pairs of the same shoe. I can't afford any more than that. You know, when you're buying shoes and you're like, oh, these are good ones. I like these. I'll buy another 2 pairs. I can't afford much more than that. But if I could, I'd have 10. I wouldn't need any more shoes. I buy great big job lots of soya milk, UHT soya milk. I buy great big, you know, I'm going to be drinking this stuff. I'm going to be using it. Might as well. Yeah, I love that. I love finding something cheap in a job lot and saying that's me for the next 2 years of mashed potato. Then that's you know, that's me for my fake mash needs for the next 2 years. I like doing that. I'm not going to require any other flavours of cuppa soup for another 6 years. That'll be fine. And then as it approaches the end of the batch, you think, God, I better hurry up on this stuff because otherwise it's going to go off. But God damn it, I can't eat another Nature Valley bar, otherwise I'm going to be sick. Like, yeah, it's funny. But WD-40, at least you don't have to eat it. At least you just know it's always going to be there. It's always going to be there for you. It's always going to... I wrote a song. Where's my guitar? My guitar's over there. I don't know if I can remember the chord progression, but... it goes, Mary Jane will never let me down, but cigarettes will always be there for me. Alcohol won't leave me alone. Yeah, I wrote a little song. Oh, stop banging everything around. I'm not playing songs now. I just got distracted. I just got drawn in. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that. Yeah, I wrote a little song. Oh, stop banging everything around. I'm not. This is not a stream where I force you to listen to my horrible singing voice. So, but I did write those lyrics. I wrote, Mary Jane will never let me down. She'll always be there for me. Alcohol won't leave me alone. Cigarettes won't lie to me. They'll tell me straight they're killing me. And that's all I know. Right, the Lost Generation. We're going to finish off this Lost Generation. And if it makes me any more cross, we've only got 3 more WD-40 tips to go. So... we're going to save those for the end because otherwise I might, my brain might melt.
But, it all seems that so many of these strange things happen right around the same time. So we've got strange destructive things going on in the landscape. We've got new populations of people going in to different towns. We have records in certain towns like my town that are first starting to be kept in the 1880s and the 1900s.
That's because your town first started to exist in the 1800s, 1900s.
Then you have other records, like from 1890 or from Ellis Island, that were destroyed. And at Ellis Island, they were destroyed, all the records from 1840 up to, I think it was the 1890s.
Yeah, when you say it like that, they were destroyed, it makes it sound like it was deliberate, but they were burned in a fire.
When that happened. And then you have the orphan trains, and we have the incubator babies, and
see what she's doing. Then you have the orphan trains, which are completely nothing to do with the incubator babies, which is completely nothing to do with.
And you just can't help but wonder, was there something else? Who really was the lost generation? I can understand.
They were the lost generation. You spent 20 minutes, I spent 2 hours going through it, love. Don't ask me at the end, what an if. Don't throw that at me. We've just fucking spent ages sorting it out.
I understand calling it the lost generation, having to do with World War I, but as most of us know, who know how things work, there's always another meaning underneath things that a lot of times we have to dig for. And I think that
I'll have to bring this to you now. We looked at that Martin Liedtke yesterday, right? I missed 2 things in his broadcast that I really should have pointed and jumped on. One was, his mate said to him, oh, the steam mills, the steam hammers make noise. And Martin Liedtke said, yeah, I used to hear that noise when I was a kid. The steam mills and the steam, I forgot to mention, they were talking about steam. Oh, well, we passed that one by. But what did she just say? things have two meanings. Martin Liedtke, in his video that we missed, I forgot to jump on it, but he went past a post office, right, on one of his walking tours, and he said, you see, the thing is, that's a big building, isn't it, the post office? A big, like, old building. And I wonder why they built them so big. Doesn't make sense, does it? And it's called the post office. Post means after, and off, ice. So this is after you come off the ice. This was the place that people arrive in the world after the reset. Post off ice. That's why it had to be so big. It's nothing to do with letters, and that's what he said. Oh my God. And it's like, so things have to have this hidden meaning. Of course, post office. It's two words, isn't it? It's post off, but it's also post off ice. Of course. But actually, the word post, I mean, I'm doing what they do, just going off on a tangent. But the word post, like, everything's got an etymology. I'm not very good with the word about the word etymology. So you can go back to, like, the names and origins of the words. Yeah? And quite often, when you go back to this, it will go back to a Latin or a Greek word that won't be the exact word. So the way you say post means after, doesn't it? Well, no, the way they used it didn't. So it's like you're just taking modern day language, twisting it, moulding it, changing it, and saying, well, that sounds like something else. Therefore, but it's not. Because the actual history of where the words came from were not of that. Post came from riders and horses posted at intervals. Posted at intervals. So it wasn't the word post, it was posted. But they shortened it. So it doesn't mean after. Does it? It means posted. Positioned. So what you, like, his bizarre brain made up this bizarre idea. And if you just check it out, it's wrong. It's just wrong. So no, Michelle, it's not the case that things mean other things. And quite often, those in the know can read into the secret language. Those in the know can read into the secret language. So I call those people that have that number theory. You know, if you add an 8 and a 1, it makes a 9. I was born in 1984. Therefore, if you add the 8 and the 1 and the 4 and the, like, you know, it's like people add these numbers up and then it becomes like, I was born in the 1900s. So if you add a 1 and a 9 and 0, 0, you get 10. Well, 10 is a 1 and a 0. So now you've got 1. No, you've got 19. You can't just... I could take the 1 off the 9 and have 8. I could... 8 could be 2 4s. And that's 44. And if you times them by each other, a 4 times a 4, that's 6. Like, you can do any number. But if you start adding them together or taking them away or multiplying, it's bullshit. Because... if you're going to add them, I can multiply them. We get a different number. Why are you allowed to add and I multiply? It's just making it up. And if you have a number like 1875 and you have to add them up and just subtract them to end up with a 1 to 9 integer, it's bullshit because you've got numbers, but you're manipulating them to make another number. Why aren't the numbers themselves good enough? Why does this magic number theory have to boil down to an integer between 1 and 10? There are bigger numbers than 10. They exist. But we're not allowed to use them in number theory, which is weird because number theory is all about numbers. It's just bullshit, isn't it? It's just bullshit. I'd love an art channel made a fake conspiracy series just so who buys it. This is that. That's what this is. Michelle's channel is, I mean, she doesn't realise it's an artwork, but it is an artwork, even if ironically. And it is a channel full of fake conspiracies. That's what it is. I mean, I know what you mean. You'd like to see one, like you'd like to see me do a parody of their work and for it to be taken seriously. Yeah, that's why I worry about some of their ideas. I wonder sometimes they're promoted a parody. I remember I said it earlier that she started her video because of a comment someone made about the Lost Generation. I wonder if that initial comment was somebody trolling her and she's taking it on as real. You've got 50 incubator babies. I'm laughing. It's not. At least they're being saved, thank God. But you know, yeah, it's just. I'm not laughing at incubator babies. I'm laughing at the fact you've got loads of them, and it marks it out as a clear conspiracy.
Underneath things that a lot of times we have to dig for. And I think this is one of those times, you know, we've got Generation X, we've got Gen Z, we have the baby boomers and the lost generation. And it just so happens to be during the time that records are being lost, places are being destroyed. And yeah, it seems like...
I mean, the destruction aspect, the First World War, that was one of the reasons they did call it the lost generation, because of that aspect of destructive, war destructive. But they're not... I'm not talking general destruction. We've been through that. She's repeated it as a point, but we know it's a like, if you're going to add up 2 and 2 and you're going to get 5 or 7 or 1 or 3, it's not good enough, Michelle. You can't reiterate that I got 1 or 5 or 7 or 3. And like, proud.
Some sort, people are coming out of some sort of reset. Some sort of renewal is happening. And all of a sudden we have these children popping up and we're wondering, where did all these kids come from?
No, we're not allowed to ask about her. Definitely hairspray, though, is involved. Definitely hairspray. I mean, I know about these things. But again, we're not going to critique people on their image. We're going to try and stay well away from ad hominem attacks. 1, it's too easy. And 2, yeah, you know, it's not on, is it? But I do reiterate what I said in a previous broadcast, which is I think that sometimes it's okay to judge people on first impressions, on how much effort they've made to appear smart or whatever, because, like, if you can't... I mean, I'm a bit of a one for this. I've got the beard and the cap and the, you know, whatever. I'm a bit of a one for this. But if you can't, you know, take care of yourself, then that's one thing. But if you're going to be homeschooling people, if you're going to be teaching people ideas on the internet, sharing narratives, questioning narratives, if you can't take care of yourself in certain aspects, maybe you're not the person that we should respect when it comes to wider context work. Maybe. That's something I do worry about. You know, if someone appears to be falling apart, a bit of a mess, and then they've got all these crazy ideas, it'd be different from if someone was suited, booted, buttoned down, had their shit together, and were clearly presenting their crazy ideas in PowerPoint presentations, wouldn't it? You know, and that's where you get your people that get on Joe Rogan. You know, you can get people with weird ideas like Graham Hancock get on Joe Rogan, because if you can present it well, you can fool the ignorant. And Joe Rogan he's not able to see the difference between a person like this with silly ideas, dressed well, and an actual, like, scientist. Joe Rogan's not got any filter. He doesn't know, he's ignorant, so he allows anyone to say anything, and if you look the part and speak the part, he takes it on board and puts it as part of his thinking and ideas, and then regurgitates it later. And that's why, you know, people are veering away from Joe Rogan these days and more towards someone like Lex Fridman, who is intelligent enough to understand what his guests are saying. That was a little tangent of mine.
Who were their parents?
We don't know who their parents were. They're orphans, you idiot.
Parents. I don't know. Anyway, that's
If we knew who their parents were, they wouldn't be orphans.
all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.
Love to shop fashion? It
Shut
could
up.
be easier.
Get off your fashion. I don't want any of your fashion. Get away from me. Stop looking at me with your fashion. And just to reiterate, she's got a Patreon, right? And she's getting £120. It's gone down. Or has it gone up? Was she the one that was on 400? Has it gone down or up? I can't remember. There was one that was on 80 and one that was on 400. I think she's gone up from 80. Anyway, she's getting a lot of money. She's getting a nice chunk of money there. That's fair enough per month. That will really help you out. It will wipe out the... I mean, that's how much my energy bill's going up per month. Our electricity bills have gone up in the UK, and that's about how much it's gone up per month. So that would really help me out. I get Patreon money. I'm really grateful for it. But I'd just like to point out she's doing better than me. And that's not right. To have a look at it. I prepared this other stuff about Birmingham City and the town hall and when that was built. I thought she was going to bring up... we won't talk about that then. The only thing I've got left is some WD-40 tips. Oh, and I wanted to point this out. My Prime Minister and my Chancellor have both been fined over lockdown parties. So they've both been confirmed to be breaking the law during lockdown. While my friend died in hospital of the COVID, these fuckers were having parties. And they can pay the fine. Of course they can pay the fine, because they made shitloads of money out of us during the lockdown. You know, all their friends and business interests and hedge funds all went up. Loads of money. The PPE contracts were a boon. And in terms of taxpayers' money, in terms of that sort of stuff, here's something that's not a conspiracy theory. We've had about nearly 200,000 people die of the COVID. Yeah, in the majority, they're vulnerable people. In the majority, they're older people or people with disabilities. Those people were a burden to our society, according to this lot. The disabled and the elderly don't work. They don't pay taxes. They're a burden to society. We have to pay them a pension. We have to pay for their free bus pass. We have to pay for their hospital treatment. It adds up. Yeah, you take out 1% of the most vulnerable people in society, eradicate them in less than a year, and your Chancellor, when he's working out the tax bill, when he's working out how much money we've got, when Richie's working that out, he is obliged to work out how much money we've saved per death. He's obliged to work that out, isn't he? If he's not doing that, if our Chancellor doesn't know how much money it costs to keep an elderly person, if our Chancellor doesn't know how much burden on society it is to support a disabled person, he's not doing his job properly. He needs to be running those numbers. That's economics, right? That's something I understand. Now, I've got a disabled cousin. I've lost people during the COVID, through the death through the COVID. I don't want that to happen. I'd rather we pay that money. I'd rather we support the NHS. I'd rather we support the disabled people. But the Conservatives, that's not in their political makeup. That's socialist to support those people. This is conservative capitalism. Fuck those people. They don't contribute to the free market. They don't work. They're not any good. They're useless. So if you work out how much money we save per year, let's say a 60-year-old person that died of the COVID would have lived to 75, 80. And every year it costs us money that they're alive, because we pay their pension, we pay their hospital fees and all that, yeah? So let's work that out. And it comes to, I've worked it out roughly, it comes to upwards of 200 grand, 100, 200 grand a year, easy. And I know it sounds like a lot of money, but hospital is a lot of money. Taking care of the elderly, caring the community is a lot. It costs money. Fine, I'm happy with that. It costs money, whatever. You work it out, you do your own thinking. Everyone's number's going to be a bit different. But he's got a number, and then he's added up how much money we've saved, or we're going to save, for the next 20 years. Because those people are dead now. Next year, we're still saving money on them. They're dead now. They're still dead next year. They're still dead the year after. Until the 15, 20 years is up, when they would have been alive, we're still saving money every year. You can then use that money to pay off the money you borrow. You can use the fact that we're spending less in our economy on vulnerable people in the future. That's like a loan you can take. So let nobody tell you that the COVID was economically negative to our country. Yes, you will have small businesses, restaurants that would have gone under because they couldn't open the doors to customers. It doesn't mean the economy has suffered. We have recessions. Economics is about boom and bust. Every time you have a bust, the vulnerable businesses go to the wall. That's good for the bigger businesses. They soak up the other customers. You weed out the wheat from the chaff. And you know what happens next? You have another boom, new businesses spring up. So never let anyone tell you because their business suffered or somebody, had to close their doors of their business. Fuck their little businesses. I don't care if your restaurant went under and your posh cakes or whatever. Fuck that. I don't care. What I care about is if poor people can eat. What I care about is if my nan died. So never let anyone tell you that it was economically net negative. COVID, for our country, the money they make on the tax for the drugs and the PPE and the money they make on the tax as well, the contracts, it was net economically beneficial to our economy to have a COVID. We opened up just in time to let that eat out and help out. We veered on the side of the economics. It was economically beneficial. They don't tell you the savings in the people that are dead. They never add that up. They never tell you that, do they? They don't add that up. But it's true. It happened. It's happening. And on the back of that, they're having parties. They're celebrating having parties. Having parties. Because it's good for them, because they're getting rich and they don't give a shit. These people should be dunked in the river and set in the stocks. They should not be able to do any further governance of our country. They should not be in any way allowed anywhere near anything like governance. Not even on the council for the local duck pond. Not even that. Bin them off. Get rid of them. Noses in the troughs. Dirty, disgusting people. Horrible, bereft of any ethics, selfish, horrible people that don't even tell you the truth to your face while they're screwing you from behind. So those people need to... If we didn't have all these silly conspiracy theories, people might be more motivated to go after the real facts. Not a conspiracy theory, but the real fact. The fact that people died in COVID is true, isn't it? And the fact that we've saved money from their deaths. Now that I've explained it, you can understand what I'm saying. It's true, isn't it? It's true. My nan is no longer taking a pension. She's no longer sitting in that other room. She's no longer having the carers come in. I used to care for her. I used to be assisted by people that came in at night time to help her go to put to bed and wash her ladies' parts and stuff. And my mom did it as well. So like, we don't have to do that, but nor does the society have to lay on any... We have to do that now. Save the money. Kill the vulnerable, save the money. And when they realised that that was what COVID was doing, they wanted to let it happen. They were happy with that. That's a good system for the Tories, for the Conservatives, for the Republicans, for the, for your right-wing free market capitalists. Let it happen. It's better for the market. We don't want vulnerable people. We don't want to have to spend money on the weak. Well, that's their idea. I'm different to that. I believe different things. That's why I'm angry about it. So let's finish. Now I've shown you that's the truth. They're fined over the parties means that the fine is irrelevant to them. They can afford the fine. You can fine them 100 grand and it's piss money out their pocket. They'll just take it from the next budget. But the fact that they were fined is evidence they were guilty. The fact they were guilty is enough to have them removed from office, surely. Surely. Criminal. So let's cheer me up with some more WD-40 before we go. Waterproof shoes and boots. What? The primary function of WD-40 is not lubrication, it's water displacement. It's designed to seal out moisture and prevent rust. So you spray it around the tops and sides of your shoes and boots and it helps them to stay waterproof. That's interesting. I'm going to do it to my wellies. And it prevents dirt caking up on garden tools. Well, that's my allotment shed. That's what our tools look like. So there's another good use. Although I don't know if it's good to be digging it into the soil. So maybe that's not so good. Pros and cons. Pros and cons. All right, we've done 2 hours 17. My bitrate is warning me about the bitrate. Forget the bitrate. I'm hardware encoding and it just goes up and down for some reason. But we're not going to see the vocal show reel. That's a treat for later. Next stream that Capital K is involved in, because I'm saving it for Capital K. He wants to see it, but I'll introduce you to the concept briefly.
Hi, my name's Scott. This is how I normally talk on my YouTube channel. I specialise in relaxing content, so often I change the meter of my voice just to bring it down a little, just to make it a little bit more relaxing. Quite often I talk in whispers. It's quite popular amongst the ASMR circle.
So you've heard those voices of mine up to now, haven't you? You know those voices.
Just to bring it down a little, just to make it a little bit more relaxing.
You know those voices, that's the ASMR voices. But there's 6 minutes of more voices. Because like I said, I was an idiot and I thought that to get vocal work, you show them your vocal range, but actually they just want you to talk in your voice. Yeah, look, the richest got richer in America and now they don't want to pay the workers. It's strange that, isn't it? Yeah.
And this video is just a collection of different...
This isn't new. This is old, and this is so old. It was in 2014 I made this. And the reason I made it is because I was aware, someone said, your voice is really great. You know, I like your voice on the ASMR channel. Maybe you could do voiceover work. And I thought, well, if someone's going to pay me for doing some talking, I'm into that. Because at the moment, I'm struggling for work. So I made a vocal show reel and I sent it off to some agents. And I got nothing in response. And I think the reason is because, this is what we were discussing on stream the other day, is that I thought a vocal show reel was do all the different voices, but actually it's just show your own voice at its best. And if people want a deep voice in narrator, they'll choose me. And if they want someone from, someone from fucking Scotland now, lemon bonbons. Would you not be eating the lemon bonbons? If you want someone from fucking Scotland, then every other place says fucking, every other place is swearing. If you want someone from fucking Scotland, then you hire me because I can do a Scottish accent. That's what I thought I should be doing, but actually it's not. If you want someone from Scotland, you hire a Scottish person. So there's no point in me doing all these different voices. It goes against the vocal work. So I sent this to people and they probably thought I was an idiot. So it's not new, it's from 2014. Look at my hair, but I thought, because Capital K wanted to see it, I talked about it just in conversation, and Capital K said he wanted to see it, so I promised we would, but only when he's here. So I'll only show you a few voices, and we'll watch the whole thing together another time.
Accents and styles that I can do with my voice. So would you not be looking at me like that? I don't think there's any reason to be looking at me like that now. Not unless you think you're getting something out of it, which you're not. Sometimes.
That was Irish, wasn't it? That was Irish. I didn't tell you what it was, I just did it. And to be honest, I'm quite impressed by that. That sounds better than I do it now.
There's any reason to be looking at me like that now. Not unless you think you're getting something out of it, which you're not. Sometimes I like to talk like this though, just because it's fun. I love sitting on the beach.
Oh God, it's just, it's such a bad show reel. Sometimes I like to talk like this though, just because it's fun, and I used to. I actually did used to. When I was hairdressing, sometimes, honestly, right, this is true, sometimes a customer would come through the door, and I'd think it'd be funny, because I'd have other people working with me, right, and I think the other people that are working with me, the juniors and the stylists, they know how I talk. So when someone new comes through the door for a customer, I'd say, oh, hello, my name's Scott, can I help? And I'd maintain the voice as long as I could. And if I maintained the voice the whole time, it'd be funny, wouldn't it? It'd be funny. Well, that's the sort of stuff I did used to get up to. So
there's nothing more pleasant in life than sitting on the beach and just having fun. This voice seems to be the most popular of them all. I'm just making sure to enunciate and pronounce all the words properly. And there's no difference really in like having a voice that's kind of a little bit higher pitched and a little bit more like, you know, Bab, it's just a way of talking. I think I could probably do an Australian voice. I mean, I am a Frenchman, so the things that I think and the way that I have to say them come out differently, don't they? So I am quite capable of speaking French. Well, English as a Frenchman.
English is not my first language, but I am able to, in my head, I translate the words as they come to me, and I say them in English. So there you go, that's French. Isabella, will you come back down to the floor, please? There's nothing else I can do.
But I suppose then my natural accent would probably be a bit more rural, if you could say that.
In Warwickshire, we do have a rural Warwickshire accent, a bit more rural Warwickshire. And the longer I live here and the older I get, the more I should talk like that, really. And that's all you're getting. I'm not doing all the others. I'm sure there'll be other voices in there, but we're saving it for Capital K.
That. My natural accent could be...
We were saving it for Capital K in another day, because it's not fair to do it without him, because he was the one that wanted to hear it. And this has never been listed either. This has always been unlisted. Oh no, maybe it was listed because it's had 1,000 views. Maybe I did just put it out there publicly. I don't know. 2014, mate. Long time ago now. But that's that. What else have we got? Have we got anything else to show you today? No, that's the broadcast. That's the broadcast. I can now, safe in the knowledge that a good part of my heart is devoted to the world, I've done good work today. I can now go and walk the doggy knowing that we've taken down some more nonsense on the internet, haven't we? We've taken down some more nonsense. I feel bad that I'm bullying this woman, but she's the one profiting from the nonsense, and so I'm the one trying to share a better message. I'm using her as a way in, but we use other people as well. We look at other people's work as well, so that's okay. And it's not the only thing that we do. We are Ganja Kid on YouTube, of course. So, we've got all sorts of different stuff. We bought every game on the 11-bit publisher sale. We did Mental Health Monday, Dr. K, Recful, Ethics of Online Therapy. We did that yesterday. What I'll probably do, right, because the way the uploads work, I want them to be one a day, don't I? One a day sounds good. So I'll probably not come online tomorrow on Wednesday in the daytime. Instead, I'll upload yesterday's Mental Health Monday to the channel. So there will be a new upload, but it'll be what we did on Twitch. So I think when we do something big on Twitch, the next day we upload it to YouTube. I don't have to stream over the top of it. Otherwise, there's two things for you to watch. So I think that's what we do tomorrow, and I try and do a bit of editing. Maybe edit that thing about Boris Johnson into a little rant for a clip channel. I try and do a little bit of editing tomorrow. That's what I try and do. So I will see you on Wednesday, Thursday, I suppose. I might do some gameplay on Twitch as well in the evening tomorrow, because we're playing that game that was confusing as hell, aren't we? Aurora Boreal or Theory or something. That's what we'll probably do. So you be good, my little Pukosh. You be good. I really appreciate you being here. I appreciate that we're building something, and it goes in lots of different ways. It's an eclectic mix of content. If you've got anything to suggest, you bring it up and you say, I'll have a look. We're doing this Tartaria because YouTube seems to be suggesting it to people. I'm getting more views. Okay, I'm happy with that. But I don't want to do it forever. I don't want to be a Tartaria debunk channel. That's not my raison d'etre. That's not my raison d'etre. It's not my raison d'etre. I bet if... Raison d'etre. I bet... can I get raison d'etre up? Not raison d'etre, just raisin d'etre, like an actual raisin. Can I see an image of a raisin? No. Raisin. Not raison. No, I want the way I spelled it, the wrong thing. Please. Show me a picture of... just show me a picture of a raisin then, and I'll do the rest. There you go, raison d'etre. That's not my reason for being, is it? That's not my raison d'etre. That looks like a tick. I'm never going to eat raisins in the same way again, am I? Never going to enjoy raisins in the same way again. Seeing them up close like that put me off. Looks like a withered nutsack. Anyway, look, that's raisins. My raison d'etre is just varied and eclectic. So you be good, my little Pukos. I will see you anon. I will upload yesterday's Mental Health Monday tomorrow as our daytime upload. So there's something for you to watch that's interesting and new. And I will be working on editing. And then back on Thursday for doing this, for talking about nonsense. And on Twitch in the evenings playing games if I feel like it. And just a specific one last thing for Michelle. I apologise, Michelle. If you're watching these things at any point in your life and it's making you feel bad, I do apologise that you feel bad. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm trying to state facts, to make clarity. And I hope that in the big picture, you might, question your own narrative and maybe feel happier giving your children more opportunities through education, and not filling your head with this nonsense, and not filling other people's heads with it either. Maybe it will help you to feel happier. Honestly, I hope you feel happy in the long run, and I'm sorry if I'm a source of your dissatisfaction, unhappiness. I'm sorry if I become a source of that, and I'll endeavour to try not to. I'm going to try and be fair about all this Tartaria stuff as well, though. So, if you're popping your head up and you're shouting these things, you're going to get a bit of a video done on this thing. I'm going to say it's a bit rubbish, but if we meet in person and we have a chat and a nice, I don't have to be mean to you. I don't have to be mean to you. I have been mean to you over the course of these broadcasts. I have. It's part of the thing, isn't it? It's just too easy to feel like being mean when someone appears to be doing something so malicious as to be spreading nonsense for their own personal gain. Well, I don't know. Who am I? Judge not lest ye be judged yourself. Well, I'm happy to be judged. People judge me all the chuffing time. I am being judged myself all the chuffing time. Judge not lest ye be judged yourself. Well, I don't know. That's written by someone that just made it up and wrote it in the Bible. The Bible's not even the word of God. No one even claims the Bible is the word of God, do they? No one even claims that. It's not the word of God. It's the word of Peter that wrote the letter to the Romans. All right. It's not the word of God, is it? It's the word of Jesus, who is like a God, but he's really a divine miracle working prophet, or he's the son of God. Well, that could be the word of God then, what Jesus said. But it wasn't what he said, because he said it in chuffing old, where was he from? Damascus? Nazareth. He said it in Damascus or Nazarene, didn't he? He said it in an old language. He definitely didn't say it in English. Some words and concepts cannot be correctly translated. So I just have no way of reading the word of God when it comes to the Bible. No way at all. So it's not the word of God. That's for sure. Don't know why I started talking about that. You be good, my little puckus. I've got to go and walk the dog. And that. So I just have no way of that concludes our broadcast.